The following is a presentation of the iRacing eSports Network.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original eSport racing game. This is iRacing. Summer is over. The temperatures are cooling down in Europe unless you are a driver in the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series, as there's only 4 races to go in the 2018 season. The Nurburgring is a track that over the years has captivated audiences. From its Nordschleife, the green hell that was a part of German racing ever since the 1920s. To the new Strecke track, which has had some fantastic races. Who can forget Michael Schumacher, Ralf Schumacher crashing in 1997, Minardi almost getting themselves a podium in 1999, a race that Johnny Herbert won, and all the other races since then. However, today it will be a case of Martin Kroenke versus Mitchell de Jong to see who in terms of Coanda will have dominance as they head themselves into the final 3 rounds of the championship. And if either of those two trip up, well, there's still a couple waiting in the wings, including Team Redline's Gregor Hutu. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series, round number 11, and welcome to the Nurburgring. Let's have a look at the track information as qualifying is underway. It is a dark and dingy qualifying session. It's overcast. It is as cool as it can get, and there's some wind as well. Wind speeds of 8 miles an hour. Will Vincent along with Jake Sperry and Jonathan Simone, as we just put up on your screen, people we want to say thank you to as well. Jonathan, last time we were at Suzuka last year, I remember it was an overcast qualifying then. We had mayhem. We had ourselves radicals getting themselves a pole position. Today, we have got ourselves a couple of lap times already in the books. We have got a bit of status quo. However, these second laps, we could see something very interesting.
Definitely. It's good to be back, Will. And Martin Kroenke currently heads the top of the timing screens, 1 minute 28.401. That's a rapid lap time. The conditions here are cool as well, so it's not a hot qualifying session. We could see lap times ranging as low as we possibly could see. The difficulties around this track as well. The Schumacher S is painful to drive around. Here's Mitchell de Jong towards the end of the lap here as well. He's preparing for his lap. He's doing one of that slow out lap just to save the tires here, but he could start the lap on very cool rubber. We've seen this work for some drivers. We've seen this bite Mitchell de Jong back on the backside early on in the season. Who knows if it will work this time round? Let's see. This time round, he's lost the championship lead last time out, Will. Martin Kroenke stolen that from him. Qualifying so important right now for Mitchell.
Indeed so. Marcus Jensen provisionally up to the second position, just under a tenth of a second behind Martin Kroenke. Pash Gergis moves up to P number 6. We're going to talk about him in a couple of moments' time, as we are on board right now with that driver of Mitchell de Jong. And well, Jake, he had an interesting weekend at Sim Racing Expo a week ago. Of course, Koana Sim Sports, they got themselves quite a bit of silver, quite a bit of bronze. Didn't get themselves either of the 2 victories, because that went the Pure Racing team. But in terms of the World Championship Grand Prix Series, they are still the team to beat.
Of course they are. There's nobody who does the Grand Prix Series better than Coanda at the moment. That's proven with Kroenke, top of the timing stands. But de Jong looking for a little bit more than he did at Sim Racing Expo. It was maybe a little bit disappointing. Couldn't make it to the finals of the Porsche Sim Racing Trophy. Got himself second position, but that was okay for the moment. But for de Jong, he's got to just run these laps and do well. Most important thing for him is he's got the laps more than anyone else, as Michael Partington moves up into third. Hello, Radicals.
Well, Radicals, they normally do well in these cool conditions, as we said a couple of moments ago. Suzuka is when we saw them having 2 drivers inside the top 3. Mitchell de Jong was very slippery through the Michael Schumacher S. He's again a little bit through the NGK chicane into Coca-Cola Curve. He will come past a fantastic Dorrit Hotel on the left-hand side. Just to let you know, there's a fantastic bar and restaurant in there. Steve Miles will tell you more about that one. Mitchell de Jong goes third for the time being. So it's now Kroenke, Jensen, de Jong, Partington, and Backham. Where are Team Redline? Well, right now they are nowhere, because Gregor Hutu is all the way down in P number 16 here, Johnny.
Well, Hutu now just crosses the line onto the second row. So just as you say that, good stuff for Gregor Hutu. He hasn't taken a pole position all season, and he's never had a season in his career where he hasn't taken pole position. So it's definitely not going to happen here today. He's used all his laps. He will start no greater than the 3rd position. Here's Ricardo Orozco on screen as well. Ricardo, who is a very quick talent out there. He heads the back of the field here today, but in terms of World Championship talent, he's right up there in the world right now.
Yeah, looking on board that University of Isabella 1 positive sim racing car through the Michael Schumacher S. This is an outlap for him right now. So we're just going to turn our attention away from him and over to Burst eSport and Marcus Jensen, as he is on a flying lap right now. Jake exiting Vito in towards the Michael Schumacher S at left, and then right hand flicking. Actually pretty good over the curbs there for Jensen. He's got to find a 10th right now.
Well, a 10th of a second is more than easy enough to find, but it's more than a 10th he needs, because Kroenke's still got another lap, remember. Doing well over the Vorsteiner curve, and now charging himself through this right. You can see him using all of the road, and now getting as far to the right as possible, right on the white lines, as he smashes himself through this left-right chicane, and very good over the curb on the exit as well. This is a controlled lap. This is very much right within the limits. If you asked someone to be perfect through that last sector, that was Marcus Jensen. 128.337, pole for now.
For now, indeed, as we turn our attention back to Martin Kroenke. He is on another lap in that VOS Koana Sim Sports driver, but this is an out lap for him. So let's have a look. There are a couple of drivers who have not yet set a qualification time. There are David Williams and David Kaur. Your top 15 drivers are on the left-hand side of your screen. Got many people worth noting on the outside of your top 15. You've got Kazuki Mishima all the way down in P number 17. And then you've also got yourselves Ilka Harpala. He's down in 16th place. We have got Mitchell de Jong, however. He is barreling it down towards turn number 1. His first lap wasn't great, Johnny, but he made up a lot at the end. De Jong needs to get pole positions. He needs to get race victories in the last 4 rounds of this championship.
He's certainly got a lot of time he can find. That first lap was scruffy. Here he is through the stadium section. And nice and simple there. Slight moment on the exit, but shouldn't hurt him. Here you want to throw the car into the corner. Light steering in. The camber will do all the work. Brake early. Set yourself up for this next right-hander. And then now use the curb on the outside. That's not an off-track. That is all legal. And you want to take 2 apexes into this corner. De Jong goes for a long, wide right line. And, well, he doesn't miss the apex, but I certainly think there was time to be found there. Now he likes to ride the curb there at the Schumacher S. This corner gave drivers trouble throughout testing. De Jong onto the grass as well. Brake late through here, through the left-hander. And he's a lot more smoother than he was last time out through this lap for Mitchell de Jong. Here's the DRS zone. Flick it on. End the lap here. Don't run wide to the left-hand side here. That's an off-track. Stay on the tarmac. Hopefully this lap through the final chicane is good enough for pole position for the American.
Out of the chicane, he will come into Coca-Cola curve number 24. VRS Koana Sim Sports then out the final corner. What can he do as he charges towards the start-finish line? He will go faster, but he has not got pole. He remains in P number 4 for the time being. Here, however, is the driver of Martin Kroenke. He now just has himself one more corner to go to try and snatch back pole position. 128.338 to beat for him. Out past start finish line. He's done it. Pole position then for Martin Kroenke. 128.059. He is a quarter of a second faster than anyone else. And Stephen Michaels also moves up a couple of positions. He is now into P number 11. David Cour, let's have a look at him. Past the start finish line, 129. He sets a time on the board, but that is only going to be good enough for about 21st position on track. Of the 23 drivers, David Williams hasn't set a lap time, Jake.
I'm speechless, Will. That's a sensational lap from Martin Kroenke. And the thing was, it wasn't perfect either. There were mini corrections all throughout the lap, but that is... I'm sorry, you're at your home track and you put that lap time down? I think everyone else should just retire already. Kroenke's just classed everyone in qualifying.
It's a quarter of a second, and this is what Kroenke likes to do, Johnny. He sets himself a competitive lap time the first time out, and then he uses his second lap time to kind of push the boundaries. A couple of times over the last 2 years, well, he's not been able to make it work, but more times than often, he ends up setting the field on fire.
Not only that, but the pressure to save it to the last minute at a track that is so easy to get wrong. It's so narrow. There's hardly any tarmac runoff areas, and even if there is some, you can't use them. So this is a track where you have to be at the utmost perfection as a driver. Setup needs to be spot on. Kroenke just nailed it, and he's just a natural driver, has a natural feel for the car. Very impressed though, and we can't overlook Marcus Jensen, who, with a front row start here, if he gets off the line well, who knows what he could produce in the race later today.
Yeah, let's have a look then at your provisional starting grid for this round of the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series. And it is Martin Kroenke, qualifying time 1 minute 28.059, who gets himself pole position by just over a quarter of a second from Marcus Jensen and Burst eSport. Let's give credit to Jensen, because he in turn is just over 2 tenths of a second faster than Team Redline's Gregor Hutu, who are rolled out on the inside of row number 2. Mitchell de Jong, 4th place. He gets himself a second row start, but he's going to need to have himself a very good launch off the line if he's going to stay in contact with his main championship rival. Kevin Ellis Jr., the highest Apex Racing UK place driver, he is in 5th place, with Matt Backham in 6th, Peter Berriman in 7th, Michael Partington in 8th place, Josh Rogers in 9th, and then Jamie Fluke rounds out your top 10. We cycle on back, and it's Stephen Michaels' race clutch, getting himself a really good P number 11. New to Koana Sim Sports is Pash Gergis, and he will get himself 12th place here today Antoine Hegel in 13th place at Apex Racing UK. Yalvaz and Ilka Hapal are 2 Orion Race Team drivers to round out your top 15. And there are the rest of the results up on your screen. Very interesting qualifying here, Johnny. And I made a point for Burst Esports, first of all. They were able to get themselves 2 temps plus faster than Team Redline. But also, Mitchell de Jong is going to have a perfect launch. Otherwise, his race might be over in terms of the victory by the end of lap number 1.
There's a lot of pressure right now on Mitchell de Jong, not only in this championship, but we know in the Rallycross championship as well. So he's definitely feeling it. And you talk about the launch, that is exactly right. He needs to nail this start. And that's the last thing you want to be thinking of, is to nail a start. It needs to be second nature, Will. It needs to be a natural feel for the car. Once you start overthinking things, that's where things start to go wrong.
Indeed so. And Jake, it's worth noting, 23 drivers here today. We often get this towards the end of the season where some teams who know they're unlikely to qualify, they actually start thinking about the Pro Series right about now. Whereas, of course, we often get a situation at the end of the season that 1 or 2 points can be the difference between being in and being out. So what this also is a good opportunity for some teams just to get themselves a couple of extra points because that mid-pack is more condensed today.
It is more condensed, but at the same point, we've had 23, 24 vehicles for the last 3 or 4 races, so I don't think it's anything new or a new point to bring up. I think the only real absence from this event today is Daniel Bieder, who, for Positive Sim Racing, is on his honeymoon today, so big congratulations to Daniel Bieder for getting married. But honestly, Will, I think that these drivers know that if it's 50 cars or 25 cars or 23 cars as it is today, they know they're here to do one thing, and that's do a job and finish as high as possible. If there's less people, then it may be a little bit easier. But what they have to do is still come out here and deliver. If you don't deliver, then you're not doing the World Championship properly.
Michael Partington, at one point, Jake, got himself all the way up into P number 3. His second lap, however, wasn't as strong. He will roll off 8th place here today, behind Apex Racing UK's Peter Berriman on the 4th row of the grid. Now, that really comes down to that second lap, because we did see a lot of drivers improving on that second lap. However, it seemed to be that Radicals just couldn't find anything on that second run.
No, they couldn't, and Michael Partington didn't do well enough on that second lap. It just has to be said. He just didn't do enough to put himself in the right position. He's in 8th position, which I don't think is bad for him. He's been improving thanks to the likes of the McLaren Shadow Project and all the races he's been able to get in there. But he is in front of some very, very quick drivers, the likes of Josh Rogers, Jamie Fluke, Pashalis Judge, and Antoine Higelhan, which he wouldn't consistently do in the first half of the season. He's improving, he's getting better. I think that was a great qualifying, but I don't think we should be taking away just how good of a qualifying effort that is for Radicals at this stage of the season.
It's not bad. I mean, I have seen them do better later on in the season. Again, I will mention Suzuka. And often, Johnny, when you see the overcast conditions and the curveball, there are a couple of teams, Radicals being one of them, who normally adjust pretty well because they have got depth of numbers and they can try out a lot of different scenarios for qualifying because they've got more to gain by the kind of curveballs. I would argue that in some ways, Jensen and his qualifying performance here today, that was a lot down to adaptability on a very unpredictable racetrack, whereas Rogers in 9th place just missed out a little bit. And I've got to say, it's only half a second over the course of a lap, but half a second is worth 7 places.
Yeah, it's big. This car is a driver's car, if anything. I mean, set up compared to the default set to this, it will definitely gain you lap time, of course. Otherwise, everyone would be on the default set. But it's definitely a driver's car, and right now, either Rogers has had a lack of testing or Jensen's just purely quicker than him, but it's repeatedly the same every round. And by the way, this isn't a fluke from Marcus Jensen, because he did qualify on the front row the final round last year. He's been on the front 2 rows another time this year as well, so he's got pure pace. I mean, I don't think for Burst eSport right now and for Rogers is, I mean, half a second's a huge difference at this track. It's a driver's track, and that's your modern day Formula One car. These cars are difficult to drive. There's been a lot of updates to the car recently over the past 2-3 weeks. There was an update that there's more of a sharper turn into these cars, so it feels like a go-kart almost. And there's been a few ERS changes as well. So who knows if that's shuffled the field a little bit in terms of how drivers who have adapted to those updates as well. But that's something that we'll find out over the course of not just this race, but until the next update comes out, I guess, anyway.
Well, let's have a look at your championship standings then, heading into this event. It is a Boeing right now for Martin Kroenke. He has got himself 747 points. Realistically, there are two people in terms of the championship worth talking about. However, mathematically, there are still 5 drivers. Martin Kroenke, Mitchell de Jong, Gregor Hutu, Matt Bakken, Peter Berryman. At this stage of the championship, Jake, unless the two commander drivers end up crashing out in at least 2 of the races, I would argue it is a 2-horse race for the championship.
I've seen crazy things happen in sim racing, Will, but I don't know whether you can have that much divine intervention to stop a Coanda driver winning the championship this year. Kroenke has been fantastic. He became the first man at Indianapolis last time out to get back-to-back victories. He's looking to make that a 3-peat here on home soil. For Mitchell de Jong, he knows that the form is starting to fade in all competitions. I think he's worked himself too hard, but he still needs to just dig in and get as many results as he possibly can and hope that Kroenke falters at some stage in the late stage of the season. Hutu missed 1 race, and for the victory he had at Watkins Glen, I think that it was a nice little return to what we've seen. But I think this is still the Gregor Hutu who's not going to be the same in terms of pace compared to Kroenke. We've seen Peter Berryman get better and better, but I don't think we've seen Peter Berryman have the best start to the season to allow him that. And we've seen Matt Bakken get victories, but not have the overall consistency. The 2 best drivers are 1 and 2 in the championship. I'll say that much, and I think that it's probably going to stay that way until they start deciding, okay, we start making contact with each other because it means that much.
Well, the thing is that Martin Kroenke, over the last third of a season, for the last 4 years, Johnny, has been the best driver in the World Championship. We talked about this, how he almost won the championship from Gregor Hutu back when Coanda Sim Sports first started. Ever since then, he has been the best driver at wrapping up a championship. I do agree with Jake in terms of Mitchell de Jong, because the pressure does start getting to you when you're running multiple world championships. We talk about the likes of Jake Sturgios, for example, and the likes of PJ Sturgios. They often struggled later on the season because they had commitments in the NASCAR series. We often see drivers when they've got a lot of other events, and you made a really good point before we came on air. Sim Racing Expo took a lot of testing time out for a lot of drivers. That meant that they haven't had the preparation for this race. Kroenke was nowhere to be seen at Sim Racing Expo. Didn't want to focus on it. He wanted to focus on the World Championship instead, and you can see that in his pole position time.
Look, I mean, there's that, and that's also true. That's partly true, but to be honest with you, Martin's always been the quickest driver all season. I mean, he had the Montreal network issue, and Monza, he had another technical issue too. So he's already taken a drop round, and then another round he got basically 40, 50 less points, whatever the new point system is this year, less than what he should have got. So the fact that he only took the championship lead away from Mitchell last round is not anything that Mitchell's done wrong. It's that Martin's always been the quickest driver all season, and that's why, you know, eventually he had to catch back up after those 2 technical issues. It's like saying, and no harm done to Nico Rosberg or Lewis Hamilton, but in my opinion, I thought Lewis Hamilton at the time drove his best F1 season in 2016 and didn't win the championship. Obviously, he's driven better since then. I mean, I think 2018 he's been outstanding, but not about Formula One. About Martin, he's driven phenomenally this season. Not as good as he was last year, where he was perfect, but he's still been the quickest out there.
And let's not forget, Johnny, that we were hearing from even Kroenke himself that he was considering taking a year out because, of course, you got to remember, yes, whilst Martin Kroenke hasn't been at things like Sim Racing Expo, he's not been doing a lot of the eSports events that have been going on over the last 12 months. He's had his own thing, and it's called Formula Student. And Formula Student is a very big thing in Germany, especially if you want to end up working for likes of Mercedes or Porsche or BMW. And now that's kind of over for the year. He's got one thing he's focusing on, and I just see him getting better and better. I also just showed as well the graphics from P number 20 to P number 21. Right now, 13-point difference, 12-point difference between 20th and 21st. Williams is on a bubble right now.
He is. Yeah, so David Williams, who makes his return to the series this season for Coanda. They've also had an addition, can we just say, before we end the pre-race coverage, of Paschalis Georgis. The Greek freak is now a Coanda SimSport driver as of yesterday. And I'm very excited for the man. He's well-earned. He's really earned that. And especially since pretty much all of his teammates were poached onto G2, and he was the only one left on core. No harm done for him and core. It's just the fact that he's on his own. He's been testing with other individual teams out there. It's finally good to see him grab a home. And not only a home, but a home that transformed Mac Backham into a two-time race winner. Who knows how good Paschalis will be after this, because he is a hard worker.
That's an interesting point to note there.
You want to pick that up?
Yeah, I was going to say, that might be Paschalis there saying, wait a minute, guys. But Johnny, I'll carry on talking to you for a second then. That's the thing about Coanda SimSports, and we've often talked, and you've talked about it on the Simone Racing Report a number of times, about team dynamics. Coanda don't just add drivers willy-nilly. But when they do, they see a potential, but there's a commitment from the drivers joining the team. They realise that they have something to learn. You often see a couple of drivers go into teams with a little bit of arrogance, shall we say, and a couple of drivers come into my mind here. We had it at Frostmaster Movano Racing a couple of years ago, for example, Patrick Holtzman et al. We see a couple of other drivers that do it. Yes, they are fast drivers, but often some people realise that they've got something else, that extra 5%, I call it, that they need to learn. Final thoughts.
Yeah, well, final thoughts is they am what they am, right? Can you change them? Or are they all about themselves? That's the final thing I'll say on that. And look, last thing is Coanda, whether they've been frustrated or not with the team they've got, we have no idea. They're really good at keeping things behind the scenes, but all I certainly know is that definitely need a lot more numbers testing for that team and a lot more knowledge coming into play. And that's why Georgis, who will be there, if not every day, every second day at the worst, testing and trying to provide knowledge on the car. So he's definitely a great pickup.
Well, qualifying is in the books, and we now get ourselves ready for the race. Martin Kroenke has pole position, and he'll be joined in the front row by Burst eSports Marcus Jensen. Gregor Hooter in third, Mitchell de Jong fourth, and Kevin Ellis Jr. rounds out your top five. But a Mercedes-Benz Arena, that will have something to say on lap number 1. Join us for our race coverage next.
3, 2, 1.
Last year I was sitting at a desk as a sales manager, and now I'm official McLaren F1 simulated test driver.
So there's 1.4 behind.
This opportunity is huge.
That's faster than the factory McLaren driver, and he's done 6 laps.
Let's go race.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original eSport racing game. This is iRacing.
The following is a presentation of the iRacing eSports Network.
The Nurburgring, a track which for years has put a little bit of fright into drivers, be it on the Green Hell or be it on the newer Strecke circuit. Martin Kroenke, he's not phased, he's got himself pole position here today, and he is joined by Burst Esports driver, as we've got ourselves here a fantastic event with 23 drivers to come on up. 60 laps worth of racing, and anything can and has already happened in the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series. In terms of the championship, well, the closest battle we really have, that's between Martin Kroenke and Mitchell de Jong. So, we've still got Gregor Hooter and Matt Backen potentially in the mix. Peter Berman technically can still win the championship as well. But we're realistically now down to 2 drivers. Mitchell de Jong will roll off 4th place here today. But who knows what will happen over this 60-lap event, and we're glad that you can join us live on the iRacing eSports Network This is RaceSpot TV. This is the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series. It is currently 19 degrees Celsius. It's warmed up just a touch. 67% race relative humidity and wind speeds of 5 kilometers an hour. It is Will Vincent with Jake and Jonathan as we are getting ourselves ready for the race. Jake Sperry, of course, was here with me just a week ago at Sim Racing Expo. Jonathan Salmon, well, he wasn't, unfortunately, because we couldn't afford the plane ticket. But, Johnny, we've still got a fantastic race here from the location of Sim Racing Expo.
Yeah, you guys couldn't afford it, and I was cheap. So next year, I'll make sure I get there on my own accord if no one could buy it. But yeah, it seemed to be a good event. You guys seemed to enjoy your time, and it was it's great to have the whole RaceSpot crew there. You're all looking luscious. Connery's luscious hair looked like he was from one of those shampoo commercials. Will, you're looking great as usual, and Jake Sperry, you're looking ultra. Oh, I might say, don't know how many numbers Jake got after the Sim Expo. Probably 0 because there were no girls there, but he would have probably got a lot.
Oh, you missed the Fanatic booth. There were plenty. But Jake, we've got 2 minutes before the race will kick off. Kroenke versus Mitchell de Jong. Who's your pick and why?
Kroenke, he bested everybody when it came to qualifying here today. He's almost 3/10 quicker than everybody else in the field. I have no doubts that he will have the ability just to pull off another Martin Kroenke race. And Johnny, I will correct you. I did get a number.
Oh. Can I, this is something to talk about after, I guess. We've got a minute to the race now. Will, can I also say, first of all, short run down to turn 1, downhill braking zone. You don't want to be locking up these tires heading into that first corner. There is a lot of pressure for Kroenke because Marcus Jensen has nothing to lose. Hutu still got a shot at the championship. Mitchell de Jong as well. And Mitchell's a driver along with Kevin Ellis Jr. They're still two of the only drivers out there in the field right now who have completed every single lap this season.
I remember back in 99, Eddie Irvine actually almost completed every lap of the championship. He had himself an incident, I think it was timed with 13 laps to go at Imola. Otherwise, he would have completed every lap. I'm not sure. Someone will correct me. I don't think any F1 driver ever has completed all laps of a season. Here's a look at your starting grid, by the way, up on your screen. It's going to cycle through for you. We talked about most of it already. Jonathan, in terms of the strategy here today, can the driver of de Jong do anything to outsmart his teammate?
We'll see. I mean, one stop would be the option here. The rear tires take such a beating. There's so many traction zones out of here. Turn 1 coming out of the arena section, the Dunlop curve, etc. Et al. We're looking to see those one-stoppers come in about lap 23 onwards, and even that's overkill. That is very early. But if you're looking for two-stop, that will be lap 19 onwards in this event. So you'll see the one-stoppers realistically come in about the lap 25 mark. So if they stretch it out to about lap 25, they can definitely one-stop this race.
Well, the talking, as we often say, now will stop. It's 60 laps around this Nurburgring racetrack. It's been called the Luxembourg Grand Prix. It's been called the European Grand Prix. It's been called the German Grand Prix. It's a home to Sim Racing Expo, and it's been a feature of the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series for a number of years. Most years, it's been the final round of the championship. Not this year. It is 4 rounds before the end, and it is a native, Martin Kroenke. He will start himself on pole position here today. It's going to be a long race. It will be a frustrating race for a number of drivers, but it's all going to be about who can get maximum momentum at the start of this event. The lights will go on top of the iRacing gantry. We are ready to go racing here at the Nurburgring. Lights are out. We are away. And it's a good start then by Kroenke as they storm down into turn 1. Look at Gregor Hutu in towards that first corner. He held the outside line. He will take second place away from the looks of it of Marcus Jensen. So Hutu up into second place early on. Behind, we've got ourselves a little bit of beating and banging. Mitchell de Jong remains in 4th place for the time being. But what a start there, Johnny, by Gregor Hutu.
Yeah, Hutu rocketed off the line. There he is riding on board with him, heading through the middle part of the lap right now. He's edging closer and closer to Kroenke here. It'll be an epic first lap if he can get past. But for Martin, perfect start. Almost had a touch from Marcus Jensen heading into the first corner, but it was all clean. The Burst eSport driver demoted to third.
Well, Jake, that's going to change a lot of this strategy now for Martin Kroenke, because it was Jensen who was running in second place. Kroenke might have thought he could stretch his legs. He can't do that anymore because I believe that Hutu is in charge mode.
Yeah, he certainly is. Also keep an eye on that start because it checked up for Jamie Fluke, and Fluke went around into his own teammate, no less. And I believe that was Antoine Higeland at the very, very beginning of this race. So really not ideal here for Apex Racing drivers on the opening lap, but into the chicane for the first time. Great work from Gregor Hutu to make the position. He had the best start of the lot. I thought it was a little bit lacking from Martin Kroenke, but he got a good acceleration in the second phase of his getaway, but not bad for the opening stages right now. De Jong trying to get past Jensen now for third.
Yeah, as they'll head themselves in towards the Mercedes-Benz Arena for the second time. No DRS this time by, however, live timing and scoring is available. Visit racebot.tv/timing. As for De Jong, it's a case now, Jake, of how quickly can he get past that Burst eSports driver, because he's already 1.7 seconds back from Kroenke, who is your race leader. That might not sound like a lot. However, if that goes above 3 seconds by the end of the next 2 laps, that is Mitchell de Jong's race almost over immediately.
It's almost over if you say Gregor Hutu falls outside of the 1 second window, because there's no DRS to help when it comes to these straights inside of the opening 2 laps. So he's got to go and make the move manually, which is difficult. Looking further back, there's a little dive down the inside from Tommy Erskard, spin behind, and there's contact, and that's Paul Ilbrink into the wall, and probably going to have a long day from there, Will.
Yep, that is Radicals Online. They started off in qualifying pretty well, but all of a sudden their day has not gone the way they would have wanted to. Saw Rob Cost actually at Sim Racing Expo last week. He was in pretty good spirits coming into the weekend. He won't be happy after this one. That was down at sweeping 180-degree right-hander. Paul Ilbrink now all the way down in 22nd place. The only driver behind him is Jamie Fluke, who is out. Kevin Ellis Jr. rounds out your top 5. He has got Mac Backen behind him as they come towards and pass the start-finish line again. Having a look also at De Jong over Jensen, nothing happening there as they come in towards turn number 1 again. It's going to be interesting, Kevin Ellis Jr. here, Johnny, versus Matt Backen, because neither of these 2 drivers like to give an inch.
No, definitely not. They've been involved in a few clashes this season, so definitely no love lost between the 2, but it's all about tyre management in these early stages. You don't want to be ripping out the Pirelli rubber too quickly, and I think De Jong's got the upper hand on Jensen right now, so if he can't get past on track, which will be so difficult, he'll need to maintain his Pirelli rubber so he can stretch out the stint, or maybe just pit early and undercut.
Yeah, the gap between the 2 of them is 3/10 of a second. Tommy Erskine and Ricardo Roscoe had a little contact. We saw the back end of that. We'll try and get ourselves a replay moving forward, but we are on board with Mitchell de Jong right now, and it is worth noting that the gap is 2.2 seconds to Mitchell de Jong and Martin Kroenke, left-hander after the Schumacher S, now in towards Steiner. Right-hander is very long. You want to put the power down. It's a little bit like Luffield at Silverstone. Now, sweep it to the right-hand side. You're going to break yourself into the chicane in a moment's time. DRS is now operational, but it is worth noting, Jake, that Hutu is still within a second of Martin Kroenke. It is also worth noting that Jensen is not within a second of Gregor Hutu.
No, and that's going to allow De Jong an opportunity then with DRS in full bore as they charge to turn number 1. Hutu's certainly not close enough to make anything happen yet, but De Jong was having a little look there, didn't work, a little wide there from Jensen, but he can recover it. So De Jong now just has to play that chess game. How do I maneuver myself to make the best possible move? And let's just remember 1 year ago what happened with Gregor Hutu, Will. He himself and Martin Kroenke both went longer than anybody else when it came to the tyres and fuel, because they wanted to play the game of, well, you pit first, no, you pit first. I think that for the pair of them, Hutu can stay with Martin Kroenke. It's more of a red line track, but Kroenke versus Hutu, this is going to be something pretty special if things remain inside the 1 second bracket.
Indeed, as Hutu, well, he is strong at this track, as we saw there. Just a little half look from the inside of Matt Backen over Kevin Ellis Jr. as they now sweep through the Michael Schumacher S. as Matt Backham running in the 6th position right now. Hasn't gained anything at the start of this event, but he is still right behind Kevin Ellis Jr. And one of the strategies we've seen often this season, Johnny, is if you're behind an Apex driver, push them hard early, because even though they've got most of their tyre issues sorted out, it's still not perfect.
Yeah, exactly. We could see Jurgis doing that to Rogers. There's a huge train at the moment, all the way down from, if I'm looking at the timing screens, pretty much from Marcus Jensen all the way down to Josh Rogers in 8th. So Jensen now, I don't want to say he's holding up a huge train, but it's certainly starting to evolve like that. DRS here on the main straight. Backham has a shot there. The leaders popping up on screen. A bit too far back. Everyone's remaining in formation. But that first corner, you don't want to run too wide there to the left-hand side, Will. You'll pick up an off-track, a 1X. You don't want that. You don't want to hit this curb to the right-hand side. That's where you'll get beached and just propel yourself into the barrier on the right-hand side. So very technical arena section, this first sector. PB&I
still also on Mitchell de Jong. For some reason, all of our battles inside the top 10 involve a Koana Sim Sports driver that's worth talking about. But Mitchell de Jong over Marcus Jensen, that gap is still about half a second. De Jong actually gets a really bad line out of the 5 and 6 chicane there. As just noting that gap, I said 3 seconds is the danger zone. They are now exactly at 3 seconds behind from one burst eSport driver to another. Let's have a look at Josh Rogers, Jake, because he is half a second behind Peter Berriman and the Apex Racing UK machine. It looks as though we're into a bit of a parade for the first couple of laps until those tyres start to fall off.
Yes, we are, and of course those tyres go off a lot quicker than they would have done 1 year ago, but Josh Rogers, just sitting on the back of this train, probably has the easiest job out of the lot here in terms of maintaining how the tyres are going to be managed. Berryman trying to stay with Matt Backham, who is harassing the rear of Kevin Ellis Jr., who has said out in a recent tweet, I absolutely love what this new build has done to the car. I absolutely think that it's the best that it has ever been, and I love driving this car now as things stand. So Kevin Ellis Jr. on a high, shall we say, and that's been proven because he's still right on the cusp of a second with Mitchell de Jong. If he can sneak his way in, then Mitchell de Jong may be under attack instead of seeing this defence that is being done by not only Jensen, but Ellis Jr. as well.
So having a look then, Kazuki Umeshima versus Michael Partington. And one thing I would say actually here, Johnny, is that Umeshima, for me, kind of underperformed a little bit in qualifying. Partington, again, had a good start to qualifying, messed up his second lap, but I expected a little bit better for Umeshima in those overcast conditions.
He looks quick in this race, you're right. So he certainly didn't qualify where his pace actually resembles his talent. He's got DRS here, but there's no chance to pass on this racetrack at the Nurburgring. Such a tight line through the chicane. You can see Umeshima went a little bit hot into the first section, and now through what used to be the Coca-Cola curve. And DRS again, another shot for Umeshima. He's lost a lot of time to Mike Partington, his teammate, right on board with him. Look for your brake marker into turn 1. You want to straight line this braking zone and then steer into the right-hander here. The visibility is so limited in the cockpit wheel heading into that first corner. And it's almost a blind apex to this left-hander too. You can't really see where you're supposed to be turning. You have to have a reference point in practice.
We have had one retiree from this race today. That is Jamie Fluke. That happened at the very start of this event. Lap number 7 of 60 going on right now. Dion Verges versus David Williams. That is going on towards the rear end of your top 20, as well as Ilka Hapara and Balas Remniak. There's a damaged front wing for the driver of Ilka Hapara in that Orion race team car. But to go back to the front of your field, this is going to be interesting over the next couple of corners, because Gregor Hutu is almost 1 second behind Martin Kroenke. They get to DRS activation point, and let's have a look from the rear. I think he was no, he wasn't actually, Jake. He's just over a second ahead, 1.016 seconds. Hutu has lost DRS as he came into the chicane.
And that was down to a poor run coming out of the Dunlop curve, and that, for Gregor Hutu, signals a very, very difficult stage because the draft is weaker. Now he's relying on pure pace to get himself back in under a second, and I wonder if Gregor Hutu has that capability to stay with Martin Kroenke. I also had a look at David Williams over that last lap. The reason why Dion Verges was attacking him so much, Will, a huge mistake coming out of turn number 1, a big sideways broadside moment. So drivers starting to struggle a little bit here in this 60-lap event as Kevin Ellis Jr. now under attack. Here's Matt Backham getting a bit impatient now through the arena. Out of 4, wiggle there for Ellis Jr. Maybe a chance to 5 if you're brave, Mac. Mac, you're not brave.
Well, he didn't have the opportunity to do that. And actually, I say you're not brave, Mac, but this is a very different Matt Backham from what we were used to 2 years ago, Johnny. I mean, he's been lambasted over the years for making the half moves. I think Backham slowly realises, he looks again down to the inside. This was more of a move, actually. Down into Dunlop on the exit, he has to stay behind. But Backham has been criticised by doing the half moves. And then this time, when all of a sudden, that he's not just making a brave move, we're criticising him for not doing it. So, as commentator, we've always got to be careful here, because I think Backham's got the talent, but he's slowly learning when he can and when he can't make a move.
That left-hander at turn 6, that is not an overtaking spot if you're behind someone. You can't dive bomb them. You essentially steer into the corner at 200 kilometers an hour, and there's only one line the driver in front is taking. He is not going to let you have the inside line if you dive bomb, and you know there's going to be an accident. So that is just mutual and unwritten rule for these drivers in this car today. You're not making passes into turn 6 unless you butcher the exit out of the arena section. Backham, I think this track he's the only driver out there at the moment who's impressed me in terms of attempting overtakes. He's quicker than Ellis Jr. He's got the pace. He's got a shot here up the inside if Ellis Jr. takes a wide line. And Ellis Jr. is taking those lines, Will, even through the Dunlop curve, where he's trying to maintain and save these tyres. Is he on that one stop? And is he going to extend this stint? And is he holding up Mac Backham?
The issue is with Backham that he's already 2 seconds now behind his teammate, Mitchell de Jong. And that's the thing that will start getting into his head. And also there's a train of drivers behind. Peter Berryman, Josh Rogers, Pash Gergis are there in the mix as well. So you've got to start thinking, if you're Matt Backham, where can you make the move? DRS can help you. However, traditionally, VRS Command and Smooth Sports don't have such a slippery car as Apex Racing UK do in terms of downforce. They do not tune their car for the high-speed sections of the racetrack or for DRS. We're back on board though with Matt Backham as they work towards the chicane once again. You see that gap, it extends over half a second. Backham will close a little bit up here, Jake, into the chicane. And I said this a number of times. That chicane, you actually don't want to be right behind the driver because it can actually hurt your exit out of there.
It can do because the dirty air effect is so prevalent in these vehicles, but I think Mac Backham has a legitimate reason to be concerned because Kevin Ellis Jr., very likely to go on the one stop, has one stopped at least in the last 2 races, if not the last 3. I think that Kevin Ellis Jr. is taking that one-stop strategy once more, but I do have a little bone to pick with Ellis Jr., and that is that he is not willing to fight with anybody on that last sort of 15-lap stint when he's in that window when drivers like Kroenke are getting past, drivers like Hutu are getting past, and that's maybe the only criticism I'd have as Kevin Ellis Jr. as a driver. I think he's doing a great job holding off Matt Backham, Berryman and Rogers, and also Gergis behind. But will he be that same driver when it comes to with 10 laps to go? I don't think he will be.
Mitchell de Jong, a little bit further ahead, is still within half a second of Marcus Jensen, but has not found a way to even really get alongside yet, John. We had that half move down in towards turn number 1 back in the first 5 laps of this event. We have not seen anything since, and realistically, for Mitchell de Jong right now, he has got to get moving because he's now 4 seconds behind Martin Kroenke.
Yeah, it's a lot of time in this car, 4 seconds. We've seen races come down to even less than that. Race victories even between Kroenke and de Jong themselves. So this is certainly hurting de Jong's race. He definitely is quicker than Marcus. And the dirty air will be killing him. Here he is through the final corner. That 3rd gear to 4th gear shift is a killer. So it's good for de Jong that he avoids that as much as possible. to the first corner here. He's just not even close, isn't he? Jensen takes a very wide line there. I think he'll pick up an off track for that. I'm not sure. He was on the limit there. But Jensen's driving as wide a line as possible and is still maintaining the position. Ellis Jr., I'm a bit concerned. I don't know if he's under control and taking wide lines or if he's all over the place. Right now, it looked like at the corner of our screen there. Let's look at the back here. Is Backham close to make a move? Is he having a peek? I don't think he's close enough. No, there they are. And not close enough, but he's all over the rear end of the Apex Racing UK driver.
Yep, he's 7 seconds now behind Martin Kroenke, and 7 seconds is a lot of time to make up in a Grand Prix. He looks down to the inside into Dunlop that last time by. Cannot do anything as they come into the Michael Schumacher S again. Flicks it through the left, flicks it through the right. In fact, actually, Jake, his entry into the Schumacher S was abysmal.
Yeah, I don't think Matt Backham had a very good entry at all, and as such, he was trying to maybe just get himself out of the dirty air, and that's compromised the run, and that means he probably won't have an attacking opportunity at this next section of road, Will, but it's very, very telling at the moment. Drivers are stuck, and I wonder whether you maybe even dare go 3-stop to try and get massive, massive undercuts, use fresh rubber and go through. I doubt it. I think we'll see 2 stops and 1 stops. Those on the 2 stops, you have to argue, when do you come down in, when do you make that stop, and how aggressive do you dare take that 2-stop?
Max DeLorco's on the phone giving us some advice right now. I will say one thing, Johnny. The Sim Racing Expo final for the Porsche Sim Racing Trophy.
No, here we go.
We didn't actually see an overtake after the first 2 laps because it can be so hard to overtake at the Nurburgring. It's a case more of pushing your opponent into a mistake over actually trying to make an overtaking opportunity quite often.
Yeah, and I like that from Mac last time out at the Dunlop hairpin. He says to Kevin, stop taking all these wide lines. I'm going to put my Coanda Sim Sport car here, and I'm going to show you that I'm going to try and make a move on you, okay? So either defend the line or let me through. And so it just makes Ellis Jr. a bit more aware that Backham's hungry. He wants to get past. Here we're looking at Pascalalis Georgis in his first race with his new team of Coanda Sim Sport. Yavaz behind him, one of the OGs of sim racing. Yavaz racing really well. Here they are through the Schumacher S. This is a death corner for the drivers. I spoke about it. They made it look easy there. It is not that easy to drive through the Schumacher S. You drive into this car on the first day of testing, there is no doubt you'll be in the wall, not expecting that car to slide off the racetrack. It is that difficult.
It is. You can get social with us, by the way, on social media. /RaceBot TV on Facebook, at RaceBot TV on the Twitter machine. Also, ensure you subscribe to the iRacing eSports Network and visit facebook.com /iRacing as well for all the latest news, information, and juicy gossip. Peter Berriman, he is running right now in the 7th position on track. He has got someone behind him. That is Josh Rogers, who's having an understated race today, I'd say, Jake.
At one position, hasn't really done too much, has just played that patient waiting game. And, well, this is, shall we say, a calmer side of Josh Rogers. He's just waiting for a chance to go, okay, time to make the move. We've seen him have these sorts of races where he doesn't really stand out as someone who's making overtakes or making progress, but you'll find suddenly 30 laps in, 40 laps in, oh, your 3rd position, for example. How on earth did that happen, sort of mentality? I think Josh Rogers has a fantastic talent, probably going to be one of the stars of the future that you're going to see, the next great harbinger of hope for Australian sim racing, and honestly, just staying on the back of this train, I think this is a good place for him at the moment. Just stay calm, stay patient, and maybe the overtakes will come to you.
Here's the interesting question, Johnny. Is Josh Rogers now at a level to be the best Australasian driver of competing in the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix series? We've had a couple over the years. The two, of course, that stand out to most are Ben Cornett and Luke McLean. Is Rogers running at a level now he can be compared in Australasian terms to those two?
Did Luke McLean, did he ever win a race? I don't think so.
He got many podiums. We got a car off. That is Marcus Jensen. That's on the front straightaway. Replay coming up now.
Rogers off 2 at turn 1. Sorry to interrupt. So we'll look at the replay of this. And then Rogers went off at turn 1. So burst eSport issues right at the same time.
Here's a look then. Marcus Jensen looks like he gets rammed from behind on a straight line, yeah.
No.
So let's have a look then from Marcus Jensen one more time. Pass towards the start-finish line. That car turns hard left into a wall, and that is him out. But now we also need to have a look at Joshua Rogers. This is coming down in towards turn number 1, and he completely overshoots that first corner. Let's get another look on board of him in towards turn 1. He sees his teammate in the wall. I've got a feeling there, Johnny, he must have heard something on the radio, lost a little bit of concentration, and that was the worst 30 seconds for Burst Esports this season.
Yeah, for sure. So Rogers, obviously, well, hopefully they're in different TeamSpeak servers or something, because you don't want to be distracted by your teammate during a race, but that's personal preference. But Rogers, yeah, through turn 1, maybe got distracted, was wondering what just happened to my teammate, and just missed his brake marker, obviously, at turn 1. Maybe had a slight lock-up, who knows, it was difficult to see, but for Jensen, that was definitely a technical issue, a wheel reset or something going on locally for him, because that was a ridiculous incident, the wheel steering completely to the left. It looked like a recalibration.
It's one of those things that, you know, this is the thing about sim racing. Often, Jake, when we talk about these sorts of things, is I just want to turn our attention a little bit further back from Rogers, because we have got ourselves a little bit of battle going on, Yao Vaz over Paskurgis. But to talk about the issue in detail, we often talk about sim racing and hardware failures, and people often get upset, they get angry, but this is basically the engine failure, the gearbox failure, the hydraulics failure of esports.
It's a steering column failure. That's exactly what it is, Will, at that stage. It's a steering failure which forces it hard left and out to the right. It's a failure. You're absolutely right. And I think that when you have a sim racing like this, where everyone's in their own different area, it's absolutely acceptable to have. If you'd say put that in a LAN perspective and something like that would happen, I wouldn't call that acceptable. I'd call that a failure. Yes, it's a failure. Yes, it happens, but something that, you know, should be prevented as much as possible. There's no way that Marcus Jensen can predict that happens. It's unfortunate, but that's going to hurt at this stage in the event. I will say about Yao Vaz, though, here in this battle for 8th place, where on earth has he come from? He's had a very, very good 5 or 6 laps to pull himself back to Jurgis.
Yeah, and Orion Race Team actually are really good at this racetrack. And to talk about the Expo one more time, we actually did have this. A driver just ended up having issues on the warm-up, and they couldn't actually make the race. And that's the whole thing, Johnny. There are drivers who often get very upset if one race they have themselves a technical issue, but you know what? Racing has technical issues. I have seen a heartbreak over the years. I think Kimi Räikkönen at Spain was the biggest one I've ever seen. Mika Häkkinen had one as well at Spain, if I believe.
Yeah. No, definitely. You see it in motorsport. It's natural. The only problem is you'll end up on Reddit conspiracies if it's at a LAN event. You know, like we saw with, as we see a driver, this is an early stop. So Anton Higgelen early into the pits here. Is this a 3-stop for Anton Higgelen? This is interesting.
Yeah,
he did have damage, though, remember, on the first lap with that contact with his teammate Jamie Fluke. No fault of their own. Fluke just involved and a whole lot of drama. So maybe Higgelen's pitting early on his 2-stop just to repair the front wing, get some extra pace. See there, long stop for him, 8.2 seconds. But going back to the conspiracies, there was a particular event, 200k prize pool, was it like 2 years ago, where there was a technical issue that had a wrong winner, and then the winner got penalized for that issue.
And I will say as well, just one thing, I really wish that down the line all of these pit stalls are completely, you know, you end up having to drive in, drive out without going through one of your teammates' cars. It really does annoy me. Peter Berryman, though, we're on board of him as he's behind Matt Backham now. So Matt Backham in P number 5, Peter Berryman in P number 6 as it stands right now. Kevin Leonard's tuning, of course, is still ahead on Matt Backham as has been the case throughout this motor race. Let's talk about Hutu, though, all of a sudden here, Jake. Hutu, last time by 132.069, he is still within 4 tenths of a second of Martin Kroenke. Now, Hutu is realistically out of the championship unless he wins every single race and Koanda Sim Sports finish outside the top 5. Hutu realises that. Hutu's going for victory.
Well, Hutu has no other choice. He's got his team, which have, I wouldn't say abandoned him, but in terms of having teammates in this championship for a good half a season, he's got nobody helping him. Koanda are signing more and more drivers to try and lock out Gregor Hutu, as it were, and Hutu's got absolutely nothing he says against it, but for Gregor, he knows, I've got to go out there. I've got to get scores of results again and again, win and win. He hasn't had the best season ever. He's won at Watkins Glen, which of course is his stomping ground. Aside from that, he's been swept aside quite a bit and had a lot of nearly finishes, really, as it were. Hutu knows he's got to do more, and once again, a second time today, he's had a poor run out of that Dunlop curve, and again, he drops back 2/3/10.
Yeah, but let's ride a lap on board of Gregor Hutu Team Redline. Let's give you a little bit of RaceSpot TV fan immersion. Well, that's a lap on board of the 5-time world champion of Gregor Hutu. We have had a couple of people on towards pit road whilst we're looking at that one. That was Paskergis. He comes out in 4 seconds. And Ilkka Happala, who had a long stop, we talked about that one already, 10.5 seconds. Ilkka Happala was having a good race up until that point as well. But worth noting that Paskergis is first to blink, but now we've got Stephen Michaels and Michael Partington on pit road there, Johnny.
Yeah, so these are your 2 stoppers. We said lap 19. A couple of them went -1 on that. Partington perfect on this. So he'll be searching for his box ahead of Mike Partington right now. We are riding on board with Race Clutch driver Stephen Michaels. Second race with Race Clutch. Didn't go well at Indianapolis at all. That is a rapid stop of the ages. 4.2 seconds. Felt quicker than that, though. And he's out of the pit lane in hopefully some clean air here. And he's just behind the driver of Anton Hegelen, who we know pitted earlier, repaired his front wing. So Hegelen there, perfect pit stop for him. Should be able to make some places with this clean air.
It was 4.2 seconds on the gun. However, for Stephen Michaels, it's 28.1 seconds end to end. That was almost a second slower, Jake, than Paskergis. And that's the whole thing about the Nurburgring. The entry towards pit road, there's a lot of time to be gained.
Oh, you bet there is. And when you have the ability to attack pit road, that's going to be so telling. But I saw something, and that was something that Johnny actually picked up, was that last time into turn number 1, there was a mistake for Martin Kroenke. He locked up his rear brakes, and that wasn't going to be helpful. Now here comes Hutu thinking about an attack, but he just wasn't there to go down the inside. That's the closest that Gregor Hutu has been there, Will. He actually looked down to the inside, but he messes up the first corner of the Mercedes-Benz Arena.
Yeah, I mean, Hutu is like 3 car lengths back. He was never going to do anything from there. I mean, this is Hutu trying to play his mind games, but I mean, Kroenke over the years has learnt all of Hutu's mind games and basically is like, okay, bring it on. I remember actually it was a Proto GT race many years ago back on the Glacier TV network where Kroenke basically withstood Hutu for the entire race. That's the first time really we said Martin Kroenke has appeared as a championship potential winning driver. Tommy Erskard, by the way, has done himself a pit stop. It's a long pit stop there for Tommy Erskard. 8.4 seconds on the gun. He is out and away. So a lot of damage there for a lot of drivers pitting early, Johnny. And this is more of a long 2-stop than a 3-stopper.
Yeah, and Erskard, I think, had some contact with Orozco in the early laps. So there's probably some damage that was being repaired from that. Maybe a change of front wing, who knows. Here's Gregor, the Finn. It looks far behind, but he certainly is. And look how we close up in the braking zone. Perfect line through there as well for the 5-time world champion. And he's got well, it looks like he should get a good run out of this corner here. We're riding or looking from the rear end of Martin Kroenke's Commander Simsport car. Hutu with DRS. He has a great opportunity here, Will. I think he's a bit too far behind, but certainly to pack on some pressure.
Yeah, and again, oh, it goes right down to the inside. Goes Gregor Hutu, and he's been able to get the inside line for turn number 2. Pass of the season there. Gregor Hutu storms himself down to the race lead. I cannot believe that. Let's have a look again on board with Gregor Hutu, because this one was something special. He came back from 4 car lengths back in towards turn number 1, launched it down to the inside. He somehow managed to make it work. He overshot the corner, and arguably, Johnny, I would say that Kroenke realized that Hutu overshot and gave him the position.
Wow. I think that Gregor Hutu didn't mean to make that move, Will. I'm going to say something very silly. I don't think he meant it. It was such a late dive down to the inside, and it was almost as if I'm hitting my braking point. Oh, wait, I'm going so much quicker. I've got to send it down the inside as quickly as I can. I don't think that was a deliberate move from Hutu. I think he made a mistake. He corrected it and went, I'll take it. That's a fantastic move. And Hutu moves himself to the front right before the first pit stop window. That is sensational. That is better than the pass of the season we saw between, I believe it was Rasmussen and Backham. Oh my goodness, Gregor, talk about rolling back the years.
Well, I mean, the thing is there, Johnny, as you've got to think about this in terms of the championship for Martin Kroenke, because Kroenke realizes if he had actually tried to take that racing line, there was a good chance they could have been both involved in an incident, and Mitchell de Jong is running in P number 3 right now. Kroenke almost had to let Gregor Hutu go wide into that corner. He almost had to let Gregor Hutu then get the apex into turn number 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's just incredible right now, you know, and throughout the latter stages of this stint, Hutu's just been insanely quick compared to Martin Kroenke. You know, early on in the stint, I think Kroenke had the rubber. He looked good, but even Kroenke now, you can see visually, he's just lost a lot of car lengths to Hutu.
Wait a minute, Rogers had an incident.
Oh, so Josh Rogers now, this is not good. Burst Esports already had 1 driver out of the event. What's happened to Rogers?
It's just a spin there, Will, and it's coming out to turn 4.
Yeah.
Trying to put the power down. It's turned around on him. He snapped it. He's done well to keep it out of the barriers, but my goodness me, Josh Rogers, it's going from bad to worse, isn't it?
Yep, just trying to have a look. Johnny, go ahead.
Now, I was going to say, the car's still oscillating as he spun, so there's just no grip there. The car's not balanced, and that will happen when you take too much curb coming out of the arena section. So it's just a driver error for Josh Rogers for sure.
We're still kicking off here down at the Nurburgring. Lap number 22 of 60 here on the iRacing eSports Network. Martin Kroenke is now about 8.5 tenths of a second behind Gregor Hutu. This is going to be interesting here, Johnny, in terms of what is going to happen now in terms of strategy. Will Kroenke try and do the undercut, or he go as long as possible and try and get that pass back in the last 10 laps?
Yeah, that's the question now. You know, Kroenke's not in too terrible of a position. If he can just stay within about a second of Hutu, he's already lost DRS to the fin. So Kroenke wants to get off these tires as soon as possible. And Kroenke naturally all season has pretty much been the longest driver he's been the driver that stretches out his stint the longest, I should say. And right now, they're definitely on a one-stop, these two. It just depends how much of an advantage can Hutu break out before Kroenke makes his pit stop. Hutu can react to that. The undercut will be worth, right now, if we look at the drivers of the likes of Georges, who was already pitted, the undercut could be worth about a second at this stage for these drivers, so not that much. If Kroenke can stay within a second, he could put Hutu under pressure.
Having a look at Matt Backham right now, he is in P number 5. He's still got Kevin Ellis Jr. ahead of him, Jake. And after probably hearing about that pass from Hutu over Kroenke, Backham will be saying, hold my through the water, because this is where Backham normally starts getting into that zone as well. He's trying to find a way past Apex Racing UK machine. Can't do it in a straight line. He has to also do something special.
And for the last few laps, it's actually been Kevin Ellis Jr. on the rear of Mitchell de Jong, believe it or not. He started dropping back, and now Mac Backham is beginning to start thinking about putting a feeler out, going, okay, this is my turn to start making moves, and he's not close enough on the brakes into one once more. If he can do this, maybe set it up maybe even 2 laps in advance for what he wants to do, then I think Kevin Ellis Jr. could be powerless to stop Mac Backham. We know that Mac Attack has always been something that we have enjoyed seeing in the past. A more refined, a more sophisticated Mac Backham, though, is playing the patient game.
Yeah, Kevin Ellis Jr., though, has lost himself about 7 tenths of a second over the last 3 laps over Mitchell de Jong. Lap number 22, he lost almost 6 tenths of a second. That put him back into that kind of defensive range. When we're having a look on the opposite side of that, you notice that Backham on lap 22 gained almost 6.5 tenths of a second over Kevin Ellis Jr. The status quo here, though, Jake, this is, again, what we saw in the Porsche Sim Racing Trophy. It's a case of forcing your opponent into a mistake, as we've actually had ourselves a few pit stops here today, but Josh Rogers is that one driver who really just cracked from nowhere. He wasn't even under pressure, he just cracked.
I think he's a little bit busy, really, at this stage of the season, Will. I think that he's been making mistakes. He's got the V8 Scots Bathurst 1000 tomorrow, which has been big for TTL eSports, and I think this is where the conflict between TTL's initiative and Burst's initiative comes right up to the forefront, because we can see it from today's result. Rogers is cracking under pressure because he hasn't had enough time to make practice pay when it comes to the car.
Yeah, and you could also argue that might be one of the reasons why Marcus Jensen's car was difficult to drive, and he is now out of the event. Mitchell de Jong in 3rd place. We talked about this one already here, Johnny. The fact that he is, of course, racing also in the iRacing Rallycross World Championship Series, and he raced last week at Sim Racing Expo. And let's be honest, I've flown to California and back. It's not a nice trip. For to fly from California to Germany and then do 3 days worth of sim racing, that is a hard thing to do.
You didn't have a good flight. What makes a good flight for you then?
I am business class, sleep the entire time, bit of champagne, good food.
Bit of first class. Yeah, that's good. That's same. I feel you. Now, the thing with de Jong is he hasn't lost the championship lead in Rallycross, but he had his first round last time out at Sonoma where he didn't make the feature race. And for those who don't watch Rallycross, the feature race is essentially you finish last in that, you get 40 more points than if you didn't make it at all. So, I mean, that's how bad the event went for de Jong. And he was racing at the Expo, though, at the time, different sim. This time he's probably at home and has his sim all to himself. So, who knows? You know, there's a lot of pressure on him, but I think he's been driving well this season. It could be his last chance at a World Championship, because we've spoken about it all season, that this could be the last time he runs a full-time schedule because of his racing commitments. Here's Berryman into the pit lane for his one stop. Hopefully brake on the markers nice and cleanly. Very passive entry by Peter Berryman. I think he could have gained an extra half a second there had he pushed it a little bit more.
Yeah, as Berryman does come in, and yeah, you're right. We've talked about this with Mitchell de Jong before. He thinks this was his best chance to get a World Championship Grand Prix Series champion trophy, but it's not fully going his way. Yes, he might win one World Championship this year, but the Grand Prix World Championship, I know, has been something he's been hunting for, as 27.3 overall then for Peter Berryman in the lane, 3.9 second pit stop. He saved himself a little bit by the fact he was a little bit faster on the gun. He comes out ahead of Pasturgis in the VRS Commander Sim Sports number 41 machine. Let's actually talk about Gergis a little bit, because he has moved himself, Jake, as we said, over to VRS Commander Sim Sports. He's on a 4-second pit stop. He is on a 2-stop strategy by the look of it. In a good, solid opening, I would say, for his joining to that team. However, he's kind of in the same remit right now as David Williams and a couple of others. He's just got to find a way of molding into this team.
He does, and let's give him credit. He's been there all of one day, Will, so I think that the moulding process does take a little bit of time to get used to, and I think this is maybe a little bit of trial by fire, if you'd say so much, for Paschalis Gergis. But I think that Gergis is there for more than just his Formula One career. He came with Ricardo Castro Lado to Coanda. That means one thing and one thing only. Coanda want him, not just for the Formula One effort, but they want him for the VRS GT effort, as I correct myself. I think that Pas Gergis brings a lot to a GT effort, which I think didn't work well this year, and I think they want something to challenge Pure Racing Team. But I think it also points a few questions at core sim racing when your best GT championship team has just signed for opposition 2 years in a row.
Mitchell de Jong comes out of pit road, 4.2 second pit stop, 4.3 second pit stop for Kevin Ellis Jr. They come in, they come out at the same time, no change between the two of them. They are, however, ahead of Peter Berryman. Berryman, though, only a third of a second right now behind Kevin Ellis Jr. as Yao Vaz has been in a battle with Michael Partington. They go down to the inside, they make contact there. Partington, however, keeps himself ahead. What a save by Michael Partington. Replay coming up here, Johnny.
Yeah, I think Vaz, we'll have a look at this. I think Vaz went a little bit too hot coming out of the pits. He'll admit that too. Almost got away with it though, both drivers. So I'm glad that there isn't any terminal contact. Partington's left plenty of room there. And it'd be good to see Vaz's perspective, but I'm pretty sure Vaz had enough of a line on the inside. Here he is coming out of the pit lane. Yeah, Vaz. It's such a difficult, you have to choose a different braking marker, and yeah, there's definitely room there, but that's all right. Not the end of the world, just maybe lost a couple of tenths of a second. It's good to see both drivers not receiving any harm damage.
Hutu, 2.5 second advantage now over Martin Kroenke. David Williams, he's now ahead of Mitchell de Jong. By the looks of it, half a second, but sorry, de Jong's ahead of Williams. So that might have been a little bit of team orders going on there. But Hutu, Kroenke, Backham, Umeshima, and Williams are the drivers not yet to have pitted. These are your one-stop strategy drivers here, Jake. And it's going to be worth noting that Williams, most importantly, the mid-packer out of this lot, is trying to do it longest. He is going to struggle in the first part of his next stint. However, he'll be fast in the latter stages of this event. The issue is, however, he's got Kevin Ellis Jr., Mitchell de Jong, and also Peter Berryman behind, all bogging him down.
I think that they're all on a one-stop here, Will. They came in around lap 26, which I think is well within the window to say that a one-stop strategy could work, as Berryman's getting impatient through 5. You don't make moves through 5, so he was wanting to make the move. He can't, but now David Williams comes under more pressure, and I think there's going to have to be a white flag coming out. You will concede, but Berryman is getting so held up. Williams, every right to fight this battle, and does so. I think he's doing well. But look at Martin Kroenke as he dives down onto pit road. He lost himself about a second and a half over the last 3 laps, Will. It's very telling. Kroenke cannot make the tyres last.
He can't, but we are almost at half race distance, and I actually would argue that Hutu might respond next time by. Here comes Martin Kroenke on towards pit road in the number 5 VRS Koan Sim Sports machine, bringing it into his pit stall right about now, as it should be about a 4-second stop for him. Tyres down, 4.1, out and away, 27.6 overall there for Martin Kroenke. Would he come out in clean air? The answer is going to be, for the most part, yes, he will. There's one Radicals Online driver, Okazuki Umeshima, ahead. He, however, also has to come on towards pit road. Now, Kroenke needs to push here, Johnny, but this is where Gregor Hutu arguably has been the best sim racer ever those last 2 to 3 laps before he comes on towards pit road.
Hutu's pace and the fact that he stayed out is a slap in the face to Martin Kroenke right now. Hutu is definitely coming in this lap round, otherwise he'd be ridiculous. You have heavier fuel to start the race. You should always have your first stop a little bit earlier than 50% of the distance through. So if he doesn't pit on lap 29 here, there's just really no point to saving it this long. He has to pit this time around. You'll see him come in just a second. There he is, and reacts different to Kroenke's strategy. He stayed out longer. He's going to have fresher rubber for the rest of the stint, and he's faster than him. This could be a Gregor Hutu victory for the second time this season if he keeps it together.
Doesn't really lock up the tyres on towards pit road, down to 60 kilometers an hour. As he now comes down looking for his pit stall. Going to angle it to the right. Let's have a look then at the pit stop time then for Gregor Hutu as he comes on in. 3.8 second pit stop there for Team Redline. Out and away. Gregor Hutu retains the race lead there, Jake.
Easy. Martin Kroenke was a little bit held up. He had Kazuki Umeshima. He was trying to get around and he couldn't use all of the fresh rubber that he had available. Now, Martin Kroenke was very good on the opening couple of laps. This is the difference between the drivers. Kroenke's brilliant at the start of stints. Hootu's amazing at the end of stints. This is going to be a case of Kroenke's got to get up there, attack Hootu by lap 45. After that, Hootu's gone.
Last year I was sitting at a desk as a sales manager. Now I'm official McLaren F1 simulated test driver.
So it's 1.4 behind.
This opportunity is huge.
That's faster than the factory McLaren driver, and he's done 6 laps.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original eSport racing game. This is iRacing. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Nurburgring, having a look at Tommy Ørsgaard versus Ilka Happala. That was going on right now for 12th place on track. Whilst we were away, Johnny, we saw Josh Rogers involved in a battle with Antoine Hegelin.
Yeah, we did. Rogers making a good pass on Hegelin. Rogers, who is on the one stop, put it on lap 26. We'll put it on lap 25, end of lap 25, start of lap 26. So we got past Hegelin, who's on the two stop. So simple pass for Josh Rogers. Next on his list is Stephen Michaels up ahead. This is where Rogers got the pass done. So difficult through this final chicane. You have to get the line right, and Rogers made the pass on the inside. And now through this final corner, don't want to speed up to the traction too early. You can see Rogers switching from third to fourth gear through that corner. That is the death switch in this car, Will. The update came out a few weeks ago to help fix that and help create a remedy for the drivers, because it was such a violent upshift and it could snap the car so easily. But with the update, I still feel like it's still there, and I think it's improved, but it's not any easier, I don't think.
Well, you've got to remember the torque levels as well. I mean, in an IndyCar, first, second gear on a road course is always horrible. You see many drivers, unless they get to the top end of their game, actually running the car in second gear wherever possible. As Rogers right now is behind Stephen Michaels in the race clutch number 50 machine. Jake, in terms of Michaels, he is on a two-stop strategy here today. Rogers is on a one-stopper, so Rogers wants to get past Michaels. However, that race clutch number 50 car doing a good job right now, holding off the Burst eSports car, and in terms of all the guys behind him, he might get a top 10 out of this.
I certainly think he will, and I think Michaels has done well, but I think the issue for Stephen Michaels is that there are more people doing one stops than two stops. Those doing two stops are towards the rear of the field. So Michaels under a bit of pressure now. Here comes a certain Rogers, and well, that's going to be given up there. There was no fighting that from American Michaels, and well, that allows Rogers up into 8th place. But that was sensible from Stephen Michaels. He knows he's on a two-stop strategy. He knows that his race will be done quicker if he just races this race as he normally would. Just stay out of the way of those who are clearly quicker and will be ahead of you anyway. And I think Stephen Michaels knows this could still be a good result for Race Clutch, and I think even if he finishes, 12th place, that'll still be all right.
Yeah, and also he did it at the right point of the racetrack as well, Jake, because it's a fast part of the racetrack, but also you then come to a slow braking zone into the chicane, and that means you can give up a couple of attempts for a second and always make it back up. And then, of course, Michaels then got the DRS down the front straightaway.
Exactly. So Stephen Michaels then has found himself a little bit of a boost by letting off in that way, and he can then usurp that. He can use that to his advantage, as he knows he's only a few tenths of a second or about half a second a lap slower per lap. So I think that Stephen Michaels was very clever, and I think he is a savant. I think he is very, very clever. I think that there is parts of his personality which doesn't lend well to teams, I will say, in as a counterbalancing point. But I do think that Stephen Michaels is a very gifted and a very talented driver. It's just about having the right atmosphere around him to allow him to flourish and almost to protect him a little bit, Will.
Yes, Pash Gergis is your biggest mover inside the top 15, sorry, top 14 right now. He's up 5 places. However, he is on a one-stop strategy. Your biggest mover inside the top 15 is actually David Williams on the one-stopper. The reason for that, of course, Johnny, is because he did not qualify for this event. He started at the rear of the field. Your biggest loser is Michael Partington and the Radicals on the line, number 15.
I'm surprised with that for Partington because he was involved. I'm definitely not forgetting anything. We're looking here at the final chicane. There's the driver of Partington who's being under attack from David Williams, but Partington was involved in the incident with Vaz, I remember. That would hardly cost him any time, so I'm surprised Partington's dropped off the pace. Here's David Williams, much fresher rubber. This will be an easy candy from a baby move. Partington attempts to defend the move. Will he get it done into turn 1 as Williams searches for the outside line? Partington, plenty of respect, plenty of room there. Williams will have track position through the left-hander of turn 2. Now through turn 3. There's 2 lines he can take through here. Partington may still defend this position. He'll have the inside here coming out of the arena section, still alongside each other, but Williams with all the traction will end up claiming that spot. That was a good, respectful fight between the two.
It was. Let's go ourselves a replay of that. We did balk the camera angles a little bit. We thought we were on one driver, we were actually on the other. Here we are on board with David Williams. You'll notice here that down on the inside, that is the Radicals Online car, but Williams just gets a better run on the exit of the Mercedes-Benz Arena, Jake, and he's now up into P14.
He is, and that was a very, very good move as well from David Williams. He knew all the limits that he needed, and then some. Now Umeshima wants to attack, and he just got past into turn number 1. Dion verges in the Orion Race Team 90, so for Kazuki Gun, it's time to get her moving, and I think Partington may just have to yield here, because look at this, down to just a 10th and a little bit, but he will fight his teammate. There will be no team orders. If you want to get past me, you got to do it well. Small mistake as well for David Williams, in fact, Partington comes in for his second stop of the day.
Yeah, and Pash Gergis is on pit road as well. In fact, he's actually out of pit road. He's done his service, and that was a 3.8 second pit stop. He is out and away. Michael Partington is going to do himself his second pit stop right now. He is on the lane, bringing that Radicals Online number 15 in. I was going to say, Johnny, normally, you know, yeah, we don't like team orders. However, when you're on a split strategy like this, you've got to make sure that the faster car is always ahead.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes the drivers actually manage that themselves, and team managers really appreciate that as Partington comes out of the pit lane. They appreciate the drivers being respectful of each other. They get along well. Remember, famously, Olli Pakala letting through Gregor Hutu a few years ago at Suzuka across the finish line, and people claiming that that was team orders. And in reality, Redline, whether it's true or not, Pakala said, no, that was all me. I did not get asked by the boss to let him through. I just wanted him to claim some points. We get along really well, and that's what I like to see in sim racing, some good camaraderie.
Ilka Harpala, Tommy Erskard, VOS Quanta Simsport to Ryan Race Team. They're going at it right now, although Ilka Harpala has lost that position to Tommy Erskard, and the gap is starting to increase, Johnny. It's up to 0.8 of a second almost as they come into the chicane once again. And worth noting that both these drivers are on the two-stop strategy. Antoine Hegelin has just come on towards pit road in the Apex Racing UK machine. He is making his second stop of the day.
Yeah, about lap 37, lap 38 is when that two-stop window opens for that final stop. So good to see these drivers come in for a long 22, 23 lap stint. Hegelin, is this a long stop? It certainly is. I was joking around. It's a rhetorical question. 10.4 seconds. Has something else gone wrong for Hegelin?
That must have been a front wing change. Let's be honest about that
Again?
one. Yeah, I mean, something must be wrong with that Apex Racing number 18 machine, because all the way now, Jake, into P number 19, that was a horrible pit stop. And the issue is, he's not got much time he can gain up into the top 15 right now.
He doesn't, and for Antoine Hegelin, it will go down as a very disappointing event for him. He's sort of tapered off over the last 3 or 4 races. I do expect him to find a little bit more. I don't think he's quite been the same since Monza, where he threw away on the final lap an opportunity at a 6th place finish. So for Antoine Hegelin, 2 front wing changes. What can you do? He was unfortunate in the first incident. I haven't quite seen the second, but oh my goodness, he nearly had another moment there down at the Dunlop curve, a big slapper sideways. I think Antoine just needs to find something that his teammates clearly have an advantage on him for.
Kazuki Umeshima is closing up to the rear of David Williams right now. And Kazuki is on lap number 8 of a stint. Williams on lap number 9 of a stint. So these guys should be good now here, Jake, to go to the end. But Umeshima's slowly starting to come into his own. He's got himself, Pash Gergis ahead as well, as Umeshima comes past the stripe. Last time by, almost equal. He looks down to the inside, and that should be move complete. But now we have the game of turn 2, 3, and 4.
Wow, got to go around the outside of David Williams. Williams has been on the winning end of one of these. Will he be on the losing end of the other? It's almost carbon copy here right now as they try to go together. There's contact, round the pair of them go, and right in front of Dion Verges as well. That's how not to do a battle, and you can see everyone swarming through. Umeshima goes through on David Williams, but my goodness, that was mighty tight between the two.
Yeah, and David Williams, I was going to say at one point here today, was having a good race, getting good positions to try and get himself the World Championship license for next year. That might be a moment that he will regret. Let's look at the replay then. The two drivers coming together, and well, Johnny, good swarming around by these drivers to not hit anyone.
Yeah, that's the toughest part there. You can see all the drivers filing their way through, the likes of Stephen Michaels, Etal. Here's the incident again. This one's hard to see, especially from this camera, though. But Williams, though, I don't know. There's contact. I don't really want to judge that, but definitely cost them both an immense amount of time and a lot of positions. Great job by the driver of Dion Burgess to avoid that. Tommy Erskard is in the pit lane for Coanda Simsport in the meantime. Hopefully a rapid stop for him. This will be his final stop of the race in the 2 stops. We saw the incident between Williams again and Umashima, and that was just great work by Burgess, who took to the outside.
Yeah, there's Tommy Erskard on pit road, out of pit road there, Johnny, in 3.8.
Yeah, good stop. I like that from Erskard. Parked his car perfectly. The better you park your car in your box, and the more positioned, the more accurate, the quicker your stop will be. Erskard now has a clear track. Don't want to run wide through here. You use a different braking marker coming out of the pits compared to what you normally use, screaming down the pit straight at 300 kilometers an hour. And Erskard hopefully reel in Anton Higelin ahead, who surely has a lot of damage from all his long stops. That's definitely right.
Whilst all this has been going on, we have seen the gap between Gregor Hutu and Martin Kroenke hover around 3 seconds. And over the last 3 laps, Martin Kroenke has lost time to the Team Redline number 66 machine of Gregor Hutu. But, Jake, is it really that important? Because of the fact that Kroenke is still ahead of De Jong, and even if Hutu is to win every round of the championship here on in, and Kroenke was to finish second, Kroenke will still be champion.
This is the Alain Prost, Ayrton Senna question that you give me, Will, because every driver wants to win. Okay, let's just put this into perspective. Every driver wants to win every race they participate in. If there is no reason that you can win, then there is a lot less incentive to go out there and actually race. I think that for Martin Kroenke, though, he thinks about the championship almost better than anybody else does. And you cannot accuse Martin Kroenke of sitting back and holding for the championship the same way that, say, Gregor Hutu would do exactly the same thing in the same situation. I think Kroenke wants to be winning this race. He can't, so he will sit in second position. He will take second position because he gains positions in the championship. I think that's 101 of Martin Kroenke driving, and I think Kroenke still comes out of here going, okay, we could have won this race, but I'm still happy with second place because I'm still getting more points in the championship than Mitchell is.
You see, Johnny, I'm one of these drivers that obviously must be the exception to the rule, because I don't care if I win the event. Actually, what I care about is, did I do the best I possibly could and actually find myself not making mistakes is always the first thing. I always should say after race, how many mistakes did I make? How much did that cost me? Did I do my pit stops properly? All these little things. And if I do all these right and I still come home P number 15, well, I'm developing.
Yeah, that's true, exactly. You don't want to aim for unrealistic goals. You can read about goal setting for hundreds of hours and how you're never going to get there and you're never going to achieve it and stuff. So just set yourself a goal of working hard every day and working 100%, giving 100%, and whatever you end up, you know that you couldn't have given any more. And that was the highest you could have achieved. And I think that's just a good way to approach it, Will. So high five to you virtually, I guess.
And I would say, for example, I would take the idea of the iRacing Daytona 500, the iRacing Indianapolis 500. Actually, the victory is getting into that event. For example, with the iRacing endurance races, finishing, it should be your first victory. So if you're going to go for victory immediately and think you're going to beat everyone else, there's a good chance you're going to be in an Armco barrier or on a tyre wall and you're not going to do anything. What's going on, Jake?
That was Antoine Higeland and Kazuki Umashima making contact through turn number 3, Will. They were side by side for 3 corners. Higeland, of course, on the 2-stop compared to the 1-stop around the outside. And I think Umashima just outbroke himself slightly. Bit of contact, but Higeland crucially through without too much drama other than a little tap.
Well, actually, have a look at the replay. It all started. We need to have a look at from up above. I actually think it started because of the fact that Higeland actually went wide and got twitchy through turn number 2. Here's a look from up above. So this is through turn number 2 right now. Note the twitchiness between both of these drivers. They don't actually make contact until here. And then Higeland actually just getting a little bit loose through the center of the corner there, Johnny. He does get a position, but both drivers are both racing on ice right now.
Yeah, exactly. Higglen was offline though as well. You saw he was on the less darkened part of the tarmac. There's less rubber out there, so that cost him a lot of time. And Umashima obviously got bogged down as well. As we look at Stephen Michaels on board here, making a move on Burgess. Possibly this should be an easy move into turn 1. Good stuff from Michaels, and he'll be in the top 10 with this if he doesn't butcher the braking zone. Doesn't. But yeah, we saw Umashima get bogged down as well, and that's why he didn't have any momentum after the contact. So another good scrap there between the two. Little contact, little blood. It always cleanses the soul, blood, Will. Doesn't hurt anybody.
Yeah, as Michael's very clean move, I had to say, over Dion Burgess. But you're right. We've seen a little bit of contact here today, Johnny, but we haven't really seen any big, major incidents. Apart from the first lap where we ended up having ourselves one of the Apex Racing UK drivers or Jamie Fluke at the event.
But did we show that? You're right. I don't think we showed it, so we're good. That was terminal contact. Obviously, Fluke out of the event. Higglen's had damage for the entire event from that. The Apex cars look really good at the moment. Strong pace from them. They're ending this race quite well. Ellis Jr. and Berryman look good. Higglen, even with damage, is quick. So very impressed by Apex Racing UK this race. But I have to say, 11.8 seconds, Ellis Jr. He's back behind leader Gregor Hutu. I am the utmost impressed by Gregor Hutu. If we have to vote for driver of the day, we have to give it to him. If he can keep it together for these next 15 laps.
That move there, Johnny, over Martin Kroenke in itself, I will say, might well go down as pass of the season because none of us expected it. And I was actually saying that, and I was getting the camera angles ready, that, you know, he's going to stay behind, just do what he's done lap after lap. And all of a sudden, he turned an outbreak into a pass.
Yeah, how did the iRacing top 10s work? Do we have to send stuff in? Because there's no way that can be overlooked for maybe not the number 1 slot. I mean, who knows what else comes in, but that was a great pass, like you said. Has to be on the next iRacing top 10 for September. I like those, by the way. iRacing doing that recently. Something interesting for a change, which is nice.
Yeah, as we've got Matt Backham right now behind Peter Berryman. Here's the interesting thing, though, Jake. Matt Backham is 4 laps newer on tyres compared to Peter Berryman, as they are now at 3/4 distance. They come past the start-finish line again. Backham is about 4 car lengths back. He looks down to the inside, in towards turn number 1, but not quite close enough to get alongside.
He tried. It was mighty close between the two. You could fit not very much between them, but Backham is starting to surge, dive down to the inside at turn number 3, showing the nose to Peter Berryman on 2 occasions. Now Max starting to get a little impatient. Okay, Peter, I see your game. Let's battle and let's have that charge, because I think Mac wants to see Kevin Ellis Jr. in the future. He won't do if he can't get past the man who can, and it's the Berryman who can.
Yeah, as Matt Backham is still behind as they come down. This is another look then down to the inside as they come in towards Dunlop. Backham all of a sudden here getting aggressive in this event, but he's still not being able to make the pass. Let's ride on board with him for a few seconds. Give you a little bit of RaceSport TV fan immersion. Could this be the run in towards turn number 1? On the outside will go Matt Backham. He tries to make the move on the outside, and this will now mean they'll be side by side through turn number 2, and Backham has the inside line, Johnny. Oh, they're in contact!
Contact! Oh, goodness. Can they keep it together, boys? You're having a good scrap so far. Backham seals the position, chops on the inside of the corner. He doesn't have to worry about the exit because of the tight line that Berryman took, and that is P5 for Mac Backham. He's going to try and reel in Kevin Ellis Jr. before the end of this event as well. That was a great pass, Will. The reason why people are so confused, how does the outside line work at Nurburgring? Here's the replay. We're going to look at it at the final corner, so we'll watch this all the way to the run down to turn number 1. Backham actually downshifted from 8th to 7th gear on the back straight there. He was just lacking that much straight line speed. You can't change gearing in this car in the setup, so you have to deal with it. Here's the pass, DRS open, now back up to 8th gear on this straight. And the outside line works here because look at the angle of the tarmac there. It just unsettles the car for the Apex Racing UK driver, Berryman. Backham has track positions. His tires are 4 laps fresher. There's the contact between the two. A little blood didn't hurt anybody. I love this battling here today.
Yeah, this has been a fantastic event, and what we said earlier on, Jake, is that passing opportunities can be hard to come by at this track. So what we've seen is a couple of drivers really utilize their driving skill to make opportunities happen where they normally wouldn't do so.
No, and I think that's very, very clever because that was a very hard-fought scrap. I think that Mac maybe didn't have enough room on the outside to perfectly make that move. They did make contact, and I think Mac didn't leave enough space to Berryman on the outside, but he still got it sorted together, and it didn't really hurt Berryman in the long term either. So fantastic work. You can see that moves can be difficult to make, but if you are creative with the way that you make those moves, it's going to be very easy. It's Antoine Higeland now will look to try and be creative once more, because he's found the sole positive sim racing car out there today of Ricardo Orozco. This one now for 12th position on track, looking down to the inside at turn number 1. He's going to get later on the brakes than Orozco, and Orozco's going to go, no, you've got me, hands up, white flag.
Yep, so Antoine Higeland will get himself up into the 12th position on track. David Williams, though, he is behind this one. And, of course, Williams has had himself a couple of pit stops here today. He's 18 laps now into his stint here, Johnny. But he's still trying to salvage something close to a top 10. He almost runs really wide at 5.
Yeah, he's got to keep this together. He's on that one stop, and he doesn't want to get anything wrong in these remaining 12 laps. Should be able to get past the driver of Ricardo Orozco in front. Here they are through the hairpin. Ricardo Orozco, I was going to say, you got to steer right through that corner, Ricardo. You almost went off the racetrack. He's going to struggle through this corner as Orozco, the most difficult corner on the racetrack, the Schumacher S. The drivers make it look so easy, but if you've never raced in sim racing before and you make it through there your first time round, I'll be signing you onto a young driver program, because that is almost impossible to do.
It's a scary corner, scary set of corner. It's a bit like the Maggots-Beckett complex at Silverstone, or the first set of S's over at either Kota or, of course, at Suzuka. If you can get that corner right the first time around, then there's something a little bit special about you. Here is David Williams. So he gets a poor run out the final corner. Towards the start-finish line he comes, but he's not quite close enough over Ricardo Orozco. It will take a lunge from here of astronomical proportions, and he doesn't do so. But let's go back to your race leader. Let's go back to Gregor Hutu. Let's go back to Martin Kroenke. And I say this in the nicest way possible, Jake. I think Martin Kroenke is content with second place here today. The reason I say that is because even though he's 1 lap older on tyres, he's losing half a second a lap almost right now. He's got a 7-second advantage over Dion. He is thinking championship mode.
He is, but Josh Rogers certainly isn't. He's just had another spin, that one coming off the exit of turn number 7, the Dunlop curve, and well, that's pretty much been the day. It reminds me of Felipe Massa when he had 6 spins at Silverstone in the rain and just had an absolutely dreadful race that was completely un-Josh Rogers-like, or un-Felipe Massa-like. And for Josh Rogers, it has to be hurting. But you are right about Martin Kroenke, Will. The fact that he has been beaten, but, you know, it's been still a pretty solid drive. There's still solid points. And if this isn't the best of Martin Kroenke and that's still second, you know, take that. It's second place. I wouldn't snuff a podium any day.
And it's not, you know, Kroenke's issue that Hutu is so far back in the championship with 3 rounds to go after this motor race. Here's a look then at Joshua Rogers, just coming out of the final corner. But that number 92 machine there of Josh Rogers had himself a couple of issues. I would say, Johnny, probably not a good idea to talk about rain on iRacing until it actually comes out one day down the line.
No. Soon, hashtag soon, we'll get there. So Rogers now, he's got just a slight bit of time just behind Yavaz. Yavaz, impressive race, I have to say. He's been ever quick. I don't know if he's put in some extra practice or this this event clicks through himself. There's the there's the Orion race team driver on screen. The man from Portugal. He was on my podcast a few months ago as well, and he just has so many stories from 20 years ago. All these drivers he used to race against that still exist today. And he's just been he's just such a great person to talk to. Michaels as well, closing in on Carlos Georges. They're coming along the back straight. Michaels should be able to get that move done before the end of the race. But getting the move done is another question in itself, of course.
But this is the Orion race team way here, Johnny. I mean, they basically outlast their opponents. I've got many things in my head that I want to say in terms of stamina, but I probably am not allowed to. But in terms of Orion race team, they have got that stamina. They've been here since day number 1 of the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series, back when it wasn't even called that. We were running in an IndyCar. They've been here ever since then, and Yao Vaz has basically kept his license for so many years, along with his teammate, of course, and Orion Racing Team. Yeah, they might not be winning championships. They have won races, however, in this series, most notably a couple of years ago, we ended Tamara. This is a team that will not go away.
Yeah, for sure. You're definitely right. And Yao Vaz right now, though, he looks good. As we said, he's on for his career best result of P7. Before this, he's finished 10th 3 times, never finished above the 10th position. So this is a driver who's been in the World Championship for many, many years. He had his rookie season all the way back down in 2011. So that just goes to show how long Yao Vaz has been in this series. He's had a break in between, but P7 for him, outstanding.
Yeah, as we're having a look then at Stephen Michaels versus Pash Gergis, and this is going on for P number 9 on track right now. And Stephen Michaels, well, after all these pit stops here, Jake, he's still inside the top 10, and he is constantly about a third of a second faster a lap than Pash Gergis in that Kawano Sim Sports number 41 machine. This could be Michaels' best finish in the World Championship Series.
It could be one of his best finishes, but he knows that Georges was also on the 2-stop strategy, but a lot more aggressive than Stephen Michaels was. So let's keep an eye on the times. 1:31.2 from Stephen Michaels. For Georges, that was a 31.6, so 0.4 of a second gets lopped off. Gap down to 1.5 seconds, Will, in the next 2 laps. Michaels is going to have DRS, and now the Greek freak himself, Pash Georgis, he's going to have to be a very, very careful man, because Michaels will not take no for an answer. He wants 9th position, and he wants to say, race clutch, their road to 2020 is firmly on track.
Yeah, I'm just going to have a look at a replay here. This is down in towards turn number 1. Haven't yet seen much apart from the timing monitor just buzzing for me. This was Ricardo Orozco and Tommy Erskard. Or was this just a piece of lap traffic involved in this one? No, it was Tommy Erskard moving himself up 1 position there, Jake. And he's now up into P14.
He is, and that was a very, very accomplished move. A good move there as well by Tommy Erskard. Hasn't had the best day, but he knows that he can do better, and he has done well, and that puts him +2 for what he needs. Rogers, though, trying to get back past Yao Vaz. Vaz having a little wiggle coming out of the final chicane, so into that final corner. Rogers, I don't think close enough yet, but if he is to salvage anything, he's got to at least make a good overtake happen, Will.
Yes, he has. As Johnny, just a note very quickly about Erskine over Orozco. Orozco is on the 1-stop strategy. He's 25 laps into a stint compared to Erskine on 11 laps. So it's showing that some drivers can make the 1-stopper work. Other drivers really haven't been able to today.
Yeah, and it does depend on track position and the lack of overtaking too. As we see up ahead, the drivers have, I'm just trying to keep an eye on Rogers here. So he's lost a lot of time compared to Yao Vaz. He definitely looks quicker though. But as you said, the 1-stop is preferred just because of the inability some drivers have found to follow the driver in front, the dirty air, to make a pass around this racetrack. 2-stop still quick as well. Here's Dion Verger. So this was with David Williams. David Williams will make his way past, I assume, either on the straight or in the braking zone of turn 1.
Yeah, here's a replay. There goes Williams down to the inside, in towards turn number 1. David Williams will get that pass complete. Actually, that is a very good move by David Williams. He came from not too far back. We're going to have another look on board of him. He's doing 2 car lengths, really, as they came out of the final corner. Just see Williams has that DRS flap open. He moves himself slowly down to the inside. Textbook overtake there, Jake.
Yeah, textbook easy as you like there from David Williams, and that's why he is in the top 20 as things stands and has been doing very well and trying to avoid that relegation. Results like this are definitely going to help you out, as Stephen Michaels has caught Charles Jurgis. That one for position, as Rogers still can't make the move on Dion Vergins, but for Stephen Michaels, he's now caught Pash Jurgis. The gap now down to just 0.6 of a second. It now just needs to be, okay, stay patient. I doubt you can get to Rogers at this stage, or Vaz. You've just got one move to make, Michaels. You've got 7 laps to go and do it. It's now, how do you want to be the best sharpshooter of them all?
Well, and the thing is, for Michaels, he is 2 laps fresher, Johnny, on rubber compared to the driver of Pash Jurgis. And Jurgis, yes, he's in his first race for Commander Sim Sports, a top 10. If you're Commander Sim Sports, that's a good first start, especially as you got yourself David Williams, who's outside the top 10. Tommy Erskine, outside the top 10. For the driver of Pash Jurgis right now, this is a case of understanding pressure.
Yeah, and it's not, I don't think it's the first race that will matter for Jurgis. Shrug off the pressure. I don't think there's any pressure on him at all. I think it's long term for him right now. We saw what's happened to Macbackham. He's improved, and that's, we'll see how much potential Jurgis really has. Can he be a future world champion, or remain as quick as he is now? Top 10s, top 15s consistently. Right now, already trying to shake the slipstream away from Michaels. See, I spoke to Mitchell de Jong, I remember one race, about this, about trying to shake the slipstream, and de Jong said straight away, when you're Stephen Michaels in that position, what you think mentally is, this driver in front knows you're there, he knows he's under pressure, and he's trying to shake the slipstream, and that just plays into the hands of Stephen Michaels.
Michaels is almost a step ahead, you'd argue here, Johnny, because he knows what the driver's going to do, he's just going to react to it.
And not only that, as like I said, and he's got more confidence under the wheel, which is one of the #1 aspects you need as a driver. Well, in any sport, I think you need to handle yourself mentally. And here they go through the arena section. Definitely not a passing move until probably the Dunlop hairpin at turn 8. We'll see if Michaels can stay close. The dirty air is always going to hamper his lines, though.
Yes, it will do, and that's the whole thing about the Nurburgring. You get into that dirty air, it can be very hard to overtake. It's not a Tilkedrome compared to some other tracks, but it can be lacking in overtaking opportunities. Down into the Dunlop hairpin is one of those opportunities, but then you got to ride it out until you get to Warnsteiner, and then of course NGK Kane. As what's going on, Jake?
Kevin Ellis Jr. has just dropped 2 positions over that last lap. I'm just going back to see what has happened, and he has had a huge moment through the Schumacher S's, Will. He gets wiggly through the first part, loses it, spread eagle through the second, and he gets away with just a light tap into the tyres. How he is not out of this event, Will, I will never know.
Well, there's a replay, and he literally just had the right front tyre glance that tyre barrier, but that was very, very close for Kevin Ellis Jr. Of course, he had an opportunity to almost win a race this year in the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series. Here's another look, that car just spinning around, and well, he's very lucky there, Johnny, over the fact that that car very easily could have beached that gravel in a different way.
Yeah, exactly, and I spoke about that all event. That's the difficulties that you find through the Schumacher S. Here it is once again, and he just, the high-speed grip and stability is just not there in this car. And no matter what setup adjustment you make, that is always going to be there. Some drivers like to back off the throttle through the corner just to make it easier, but it's, you lose time. Where is the limit? How much off the throttle do you want to back off? Do you want to risk crashing? And I'm just glad that he only ended up with a slight little tap with the wall, but he's lost 2 important positions there, which he's going to be kicking himself about with 5 to go.
Yeah, and for Apex Racing UK, Jake, you've got to argue, is that an issue purely with Ellis Jr., or is that an issue with tyres?
I think that Kevin Ellis Jr. has been doing the one stop long enough that he shouldn't be having those issues with tyres. I think that it's the one rare mistake that he's made. I think it's the only mistake that he's made, and I think that has hurt him, as actually I've just seen João Vaz go too wide right now with a certain Mr. Josh Rogers heading through the final corner. He holds on for the moment as he now looks to try and make that move. It may just be a setup issue that Apex maybe need to go back to the chalkboard with, but Honestly, I think that Kevin Ellis Jr. knows he's made that mistake. It was a wiggle through one, a wiggle through the other, and it can happen in the click of a fingers. I know that I can't do the Schumacher S's properly. You know, Kevin Ellis Jr., a lot more talented than I certainly am, but, you know, it can happen to anybody there.
Replay after replay. The first one we saw was with Ilka Happala, Tommy Ørsgaard. This one is with Josh Rogers versus Yao Vaz, going for position as Yao Vaz in 7th place right now. A lot of action going on here late on in, Johnny. And this is the whole thing. These guys have stretched their tyre life out as long as they can. The last few laps, a lot of people is going to be very slippery.
Yeah, it's impressive from Rogers because he's normally the guy who struggles towards the end of a stint. So he's managing the tyres well. Here's Dion Burgess, who's right behind Kazuki Mishima, but Rogers etching closer and closer. On the timing screens now, he's 3/10 behind the driver of Yao Vaz. Could he find himself in the 7th position? Josh Rogers, DRS enabled as well, and could potentially have a move. No, not close through the chicane. Ran very wide though, almost onto the grasscrete there on the straight. You can pick up an off track for that, even though you might not gain any time. So you need to be careful. There is a 40 incident limit in this race, so the drivers have plenty of leeway. And here's another attempt for Josh Rogers. The Australian could find himself in the top 7.
Down in towards turn number 1. Down to the inside will go Rogers over the Orion Race Team car of Yao Vaz. That one, Jake, almost looked a little bit too easy.
Too easy, yes, but you have to remember there, Vaz had to move out of the way. If he didn't, then Rogers would be careering straight into him. Rogers ran it very, very deep on the brakes and very nearly ran into a lot more issues than just that. Ilka Happala as well. He's on the train of Ørsgaard and Williams here, looking to try and get to late positions with 4 laps to go in his race. Gonna look down to turn number 1, not close enough, but that could have very easily ended in the 4th spin that we've seen for Josh Rogers there, Will.
Indeed so, as currently Racebot Cat is trying to wake up Racebot Wife, who's fallen asleep during this race. We do apologise. As Tommy Ørsgaard is right behind David Williams. However, the big battle going on really is what Ilka Happala trying to salvage himself, P number 13, Johnny.
Yeah, exactly. So there's definitely a lot of battles going on late in this event. Happala in the other Orion car could find himself up a position here. I think Vaz has lost about a second this lap, so Vaz has probably pushed too hard at one corner and lost a bit of time to Rogers. Here's the killer corner of the Schumacher S. Can they handle it this time around? You can see they all back off the throttle. They looked a bit slow through there, but that's definitely the best way to overcome it. Riding on well with Ørsgaard, still a bit too far behind his teammate.
Yeah, as we're having a look, as we say, between the 2 commander drivers and a charging Ilka Happala. Ilka Happala, of course, is their former winner, Johnny, in the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series and has pretty much been here since day number 1.
Yeah, and can we also confirm, we spoke about best Australian drivers out there. Luke McLean has won a race. So we just want to confirm that. Stephen Michaels now in some battles.
Yeah, so let's go back then to Stephen Michaels as Ilka Happala has a loose moment there. We'll go back to Ilka Happala. He's passing down Pash Gergis as we've got now just 3 laps to go in this one here, Jake, in towards turn number 5 and 6 again. And Stephen Michaels, I will say, this is one of the best races I've seen him do in the World Championship Series.
Well, he looked around the outside at turn number 1 that last time by. It didn't work on Gergis, who went very defensive into turn number 1 without Michaels being alongside. So I think here trying to play a bit of 4D chess at the moment, it seems, for Bash Gergis, when it seems that there's only 3D checkers being played at the moment by Stephen Michaels as they head into the left and right sweeping sections. And this has been telling here. Kawandakar, fantastic through these sections. Not so much it has been for the race clutch and Michaels, and he has just been stuck and buffeted by dirty air. I'm not sure it works, but in slow braking zones, Michaels has been so good, and that's why he's been pulling it back. But he's got 2 laps to make this move, and this is one of his 2 chances coming up.
Yeah, very quickly, ESPN, it's worth noting that if you're going to have that smaller graphic for a sponsor logo on your screen, if I can't see it and I've got a big TV, no one can see it. Here comes Stephen Michaels looking down to the outside, in towards turn number 1. He'll have himself the outside line, but can he get himself alongside into 2? Johnny, the answer is going to be no with 2 to go.
No way past, so Michaels has to get this done ASAP. Georges has done an incredible job holding him back this much. So if he blows it on the final lap, I can tell you he will be furious with that. Michael's still young, still hungry. White flag now for Hutu, who will cross the line soon. And I guess for Gregor Hutu, though, Will, on this final lap, we spoke about him after the pit stop, slap in the face for the strategy of Martin Kroenke. And now a second win looming if he gets it all together on this final lap this season.
Yeah, let's turn it over then to the driver of Gregor Hutu because, well, this is a race, again, where Gregor Hutu had to pass to get the win. Watkins Glen International, it came down to the final lap, literally, with Mitchell de Jong in terms of getting that race victory. Here today, Gregor Hutu again had to make a bold pass, this time in towards turn number 1, as he got himself to move over Martin Kroenke, and he was able to get himself from there the race lead and 7.5 seconds gap over the sequence of pit stops. Hutu came on towards pit road 1 lap later than the Koanda SimSports driver of Martin Kroenke. That didn't really matter. We often say that VRS Koanda SimSports are better in the first stage of a run and Team Redline better in the last stage. Today, Hutu has been phenomenal ever since he had that race lead. He got himself up into second place in the first lap of this event, and now he comes down into the NGK chicane for the final time. Gregor Hutu, Team Redline, they may not be championship favourites, but they are still race winners in the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series. Gregor Hutu wins his second race of the year here at the Nurburgring, and hometown hero Martin Kroenke has to settle for second place. And for Koanda SimSports, that is another disappointment at the Nurburgring in the last couple of weeks. Gregor Hutu wins, Martin Kroenke second, Mitchell de Jong in third place, Mac Backham in fourth, and then Peter Berriman just coming past the stripe now, rounds out your top 5. Kevin Ellis Jr. in 6th. Josh Rogers coming through the chicane right now. He will claim 6th position, but Johnny, Koanda SimSports cannot get a break at this racetrack this year.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate, you know, for Martin Kroenke as well. This is his virtual home track, and you certainly want to cap it off well. Maybe we should go back to Avis or something and give him a better shot there. But we're going to do that. But for Gregor Hutu, though, if we have to focus on the positives, this is a brilliant victory for him. I'm more than happy for him, and I think he's well deserved this. Good to see him back on winning terms. And he's a driver who, after the Zandvoort issues where he couldn't race, lost a lot of points. Who knows? If he had have attended that race, would he be in a charge for the championship right now?
It would have been closer, but Jake, one would argue, is closer 50 points. It still would be a little bit too far back, in my opinion.
I still think it is, but it would be more of a factor, I think, in the racing. I think that 50 points can be overturned. It has been overturned this season by Martin Kroenke over Mitchell de Jong. But if Gregor Hutu had himself a start at the last, or one of the last few rounds of the championships, I think it was Zandvoort he didn't turn up for. If Gregor Hutu started Zandvoort, he would be in that championship fight. I think he's won here, but I still don't think he's in the championship fight. I think he's close. He'll get there if Kroenke and de Jong start hitting each other, but I still think he needs a bit of help.
And also worth noting very quickly, Johnny, is that Michael tried to get past Gergis, didn't do so.
No, he butchered it at the final chicane, at the NGK chicane, and just, or Vidal chicane, whatever people call it these days, and he just lost a lot of time. Didn't get an off track, to just messed up the corner that much. So Georges, top 10 position for him in his first race with VRS Koanda SimSport. And Michael's, good to see him. Best result in his second race for Race Clutch. A top 10 for Race Clutch, their highest finish in their team's history.
Well, let's have a look then at your final race results here from the Nurburgring. And Gregor Hutu wins by 7.8 seconds over Martin Kroenke. Hutu getting himself the race lead down at turn number 1, about a third of the way through the motor race. Kroenke having to settle for second, but he's happy with that because he still extends his lead over Mitchell de Jong, who comes home in third. Matt Backham, 4th place, also for Crown Sim Sports. Then you got 2 Apex Racing UK drivers. 5th place is Peter Berman. 6th place for Kevin Ellis Jr. Burst Esports Josh Rogers, after having such a great qualifying. Burst Esports cannot get a driver inside the top 5. Rogers is the highest placed driver in 7th. Orion Race Team in 8th place. And then Pascal Urgis, first race for Commander Sim Sports in 9th. 10th place, that will go to Stephen Michaels. There's a look then at the remainder of the results. They are up on your screen right now. We're going to take a quick break here on RaceSport TV and on the iRacing Esports Network. We'll be back with our post-race coverage after these messages. You just watched the 11th round of the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series live here on RaceSport TV. We'll be back after this.
So what are you afraid of? Those feelings are made up. For anyone asking who is the best, we putting our hands up.
4 more kilometers.
Oh, there we go! They touched!
This time, like the last time, I'm moving so fast, I'm ready to ride.
Frankie! Down to the inside, and Hoochie's off!
Passenger throws the block, and he will keep him behind him.
My time. None of you people can tell me to stop. Lower the lights down. Hand over my crown. Hand over my heart. I do this for my town. I do this for my crowd. So turn me up real loud. My time. None of you people can tell me to stop. Turning the track up. I'll never go back down. Hand over my heart. I do this for my town. I do this for my crowd. So turn me up real loud. My time. None of you people can tell me to stop.
It's post-race time here, live from the virtual Nurburgring on the iRacing eSports network, as Gregor Hutu claims his second victory of the season. Here's a look again at your top 10. Redline win by 7.7 seconds over Commander Simsport. Gregor Hutu over Martin Kroenke. Johnny, Kroenke versus Hutu has been a battle going on for years. Did Kroenke just give up and think about the championship, or did Hutu completely outclass him?
Who knows? I mean, I think Hutu was just quicker today. Hutu's always been quick at the Nürburgring too. I think this is a track that Hutu goes well at since it was released on iRacing. Just looking forward to speaking to both of them. I think they both drove their brains out, and I think Hutu ended out on top for once. Yeah, it's okay for Martin to lose every now and then.
And Jake, you alluded to earlier at the top of this broadcast that Team Redline, this is traditionally their track over Commander. Hutu gives a little bit of Redline pride as the only Redline driver here today.
Yes, he does, and I think that what Gregor Hutu is able to do, and what he did today, is proof that Redline still have incredibly quick drivers. Gregor Hutu is still one of the world's best sim racers, and that cannot be understated with just how good Gregor Hutu was today. He didn't just beat Martin Kroenke, he beat Martin Kroenke on the strategy, he beat him in overall pace, and ultimately, Gregor Hutu got back to the Gregor Hutu that we knew from 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and that's the Gregor Hutu that I think a lot of people want to see more. So I think that dominant Gregor has come back, it's nice to see, and I hope that we get to see a bit more of it over the next 2 years.
Indeed. So naturally we are now going to have a chat with your race winner. He stood by with Jonathan Simone. Johnny, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Will. Gregor, congratulations. Back to victory lane for the second time this season. Can I just first start about the pass you made for the lead? Just incredible. We weren't sure if you planned that at all this whole time round, or whether or not you made your way through. We might actually will be having troubles with Gregor. We don't know if you can hear anyone yet. We'll wait for that. You're good, Gregor?
I can hear you now.
Oh, perfect. So I was saying, first of all, congrats. I don't know if I have to say congrats again, Will. Do I need to? Congratulations again. Good win. Back to victory lane, we were saying. Can we first talk about your pass on Martin Kroenke? We weren't sure in the commentary booth if you'd planned that for the past 50 seconds before, or if you just turned a late breaking move into a pass.
Not really. I didn't plan it. I just tried to get as close as possible into turn 1 and maybe make something happen into turn 2. But yeah, I was able to brake pretty late into turn 1, so yeah, I just kind of had to get off the brake a bit and go to the inside. And Martin gave me some room. I guess he didn't have a reason to race that hard, so it worked out in the end.
Any reason why you were so much more quicker compared to usual this race? Because we know you go well at the Nürburgring, but was it tyre management? Did you somehow find a way to drive through the Schumacher S quicker than everybody else? Do you have any identification on why you were quicker? Did you notice during the race that you were quicker than Martin through certain parts of the lap?
Yeah, I think I was a bit quicker in the chicane at the end, so yeah, I have no idea why, but would be nice to know. But yeah, I think it's one of, or maybe my best track. Of course, Watkins Glen too, but I really enjoy driving this one, so yeah, it would be nice to know the reason. I would do it at other tracks as well, but no, it's really fun track to drive, and yeah, like I said, my favorite track to drive with this car at the moment, I think.
And don't mean to rub it in your face, but had you raced at Zandvoort, do you think you'd have a good challenge for the championship if you were at that race? Do you think you would have been a bit too far behind?
It's tough to say. I think there's a couple of tough tracks coming up, so those will be tougher to get a good result at. So, but yeah, I don't know. Haven't really thought about it, but I'll just try to try to go for the win if it's possible, like here. So yeah, let's see.
And finally, who'd you like to thank from Team Redline and the whole Hutu support camp?
Yeah, thanks to our sponsors, Fanatec, SimLab, Feel, and as always, thanks to the team for support.
So there you go, Will. Gregor Hutu's second victory in 2018 and also 59th career victory. How about that? We're forgetting that he keeps piling those on the more he races.
One after the other for Gregor Hutu. Yep, 59th victory in the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series, as we've got ourselves second place driver. That is Martin Kroenke. He stood by with Jake Sperry.
Martin, it's not a victory here today, but it's still important ground in the championship. You extend your championship lead over Mitchell de Jong, but on home territory, knowing that this was a red line track, are you still happy with second position?
Well, it could have been better. I mean, winning would be, of course, nicer, but it's still okay. Second place still gives 80 points, and in the championship picture, at the end of the day, the closest rival is Mitchell, and as long as I finish ahead of Mitchell, I'm okay with it. At least for now. If Gregor makes up a lot more points and is suddenly very close in the championship again, I might say otherwise, but as of now, it's okay.
You had yourself the race lead. You had the race lead from the drop of the flag. You had an amazing qualifying effort, but that pass that you found yourself being put on by Gregor, was it a case of you couldn't defend a pass like that because of the late nature of the move, or was it more rather you had to think about keeping the car alive by not shutting the door?
The latter, rather. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm still a little bit surprised that he attempted to pass from that far back. I think it was still 0.4 or 0.45 back at brake marker. And when I've seen that he's going to the inside, I was just, a little bit reluctant to turn in and just make sure that we don't collide. If I'm second, I'm still okay. As long as I don't have a DNF again, I'm good.
Well, apart from being arguably the most influential member right now in the Alan Prost School of Racing Driving, you find yourself now with 3 races left in the championship, a good points haul margin at the top. You know that one race could change everything. Is it just a case now of just, hammer it home, just get some consistent podium finishes and hope that the results come to you?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I'm of course still hungry to win races. The next couple of races should also be traditionally a little bit better for us. Nurburgring was always a little bit of the track where we've struggled. Last year it was really close. In 2016 we've lost by about 25 seconds or so. So the next couple of tracks should be better for us, but for now it's just race by race basis. Make sure the results are good and you don't really have a bad result by having issues or a DNF.
Well, certainly indeed, it looks like a very, very good result for you championship-wise. Before we let you go, any shout-outs or sponsors?
Yeah, first of all, thanks to my teammates for all the preparation they have done during this week. Also to the strategy guys, to Philip and Jake, who have done the strategy today. And then, of course, also a huge shout-out to our sponsors. First of all, to Virtual Racing School, and also to Hoisingveld, to N1 Design, SimQuip, and Enjoy Real Timing. And also thanks to you guys for providing a broadcast.
Not a problem at all there. So Martin Kroenke comes home second and extends his championship lead without the victory. But, Will, it was still a very, very solid drive if you put all the components together.
It was, and it was one that one could argue was the control drive, remembering there's only now 3 rounds of the championship to go. From one Commander Sim Sports driver to another, Johnny Simone has Mitchell de Jong. So, Jonathan Simon has Mitchell de Jong right now.
You had to do that, didn't you? So,
I did.
Mr. Simon has Mitchell de Jong, who came home in the final podium position. Mitchell, can I start off with your start of the race and how you had such a great getaway, but Marcus Jensen had the entire inside line to himself, and there was just nowhere you could go, and then you were stuck behind him for the rest of the first stint.
Yeah, I think the start was looking pretty okay. It was a bit on the edge, so as I was kind of feeding out of the clutch and onto the throttle, it was a little scary. But yeah, the lane was kind of open. but it was going to be extremely tight, and I'm pretty sure if I went for something in turn 1, I would have wrecked everyone. So, yeah, just tried to be smart. And yeah, like you said, the dirty air is quite difficult here. I think we had some nice pace. Maybe not as quick as the front two. It's hard to really say. But maybe wouldn't have lost so much. But yeah, just tried to be patient, hoping that when the tires started to go away, that maybe an opportunity would wake up. And yeah, I don't know what happened to him. It's really unfortunate. It looks like a technical thing, but it gave me clean air, and just tried to manage my race from that point. I kind of burned tires driving in dirty air for so long, but yeah, that's the way it goes. And with how things were going, I'm pretty happy with third, to be honest.
Can I bring up Marcus's crash in front of you? Did you think you did something wrong, or were you just celebrating? Yes, one fist in the air, and you sort of felt bad as well at the same time for Marcus Jensen.
Well, I noticed I was starting to get a little bit closer, almost to the point where I could maybe think about having a dive in turn 1. And I tried to get close before that corner, and everything was going according to plan, and suddenly he just darted into the wall, so I wasn't sure if we had some crazy netcode thing or something, but yeah, no, it was, I mean, I've had a race like that before, in Montreal in 2016, basically the same exact issue. Pretty early in the race, I think lap 2 actually, the car had an issue with the sim, and it just locked into the wall, and the race was over. So I definitely feel for him. Yeah, I'm sure he would have had a really good finish. So yeah, really unlucky.
And final thing ahead of Suzuka, the championship lead for you is sort of, I mean, look, you're still in clutching distance. You can still get it done, but it's just not the result you wanted today, finishing behind your teammate.
Yeah, it's obviously, you know, I want to be fighting for the championship in the end. But yeah, I think this was a good race. I could be happy with this one. You know, getting back from the expo so late and all that. Just needed to kind of make it through this one, and now we have some nice tracks a few weeks in a row, so it'll be cool to actually, you know, have a steady build-up of driving this car, not having to switch back and forth between series. So I'm really looking forward to it, and obviously anything can happen still. I think we're both at a point where we can't afford to have any bad finishes, and one bad finish can really change everything. So yeah, we're just gonna have some fun with it. See where we end up in the end.
And who gets it done for you at Quanta Sim Sport? Oh, apart from Quanta Sim Sport.
Yeah, of course. I'd like to thank all our teammates, especially yeah, everyone that drove, preparing for this when I wasn't really here. It's also great to have some new guys on board as well that helped a lot with the car, and I'm looking forward to practicing with them for the next rounds. And all our partners, Virtual Racing School, Huizingfeld Engineering, Anwar Design, SimQuip, VTech, Joe Real Timing, and of course you guys for broadcasting this for us.
There you go, Will. Mitchell de Jong rounds out the podium. It's weird to think about it, Will. Is this a bittersweet result for him? Is it good? Is it bad? It's just, it's all over the place, but he seems to be content with it, and I think it's a good, strong haul of points.
It's not a bad result. It's not a great result. I have got a question for Mitchell de Jong. Is there a secret handshake to get loads of free Red Bull?
Well, if you were at the expo towards when everything was being torn down, I'm sure you saw those nice fridges with all those Red Bulls in there. You should have stuck around.
I
and
did.
Okay, perfect.
Yes. Mitchell de Jong there, coming home third place here today. Matt Backham, fourth place for Quanta Sim Sports, just off the podium. However, a good recovery drive from what was not the best qualifying position. Stood by with Sperry.
Yes, and Mac, you know, qualifying for you has always been the sort of the crux of your season so far. Started 6th, made your way up to 4th. How difficult's overtaking here? Because you managed to get one good overtake on Peter Berryman, but aside from that, there wasn't really much that you could say Mac Backham did much this event.
Yeah, it's just impossible to pass here, really, unless you're really that much faster. So that's why I went so long in the first stint, because I saw that Peter obviously pitted a lap earlier than I wanted to pit, and I knew if I was going to pit the lap later, I was not going to have enough of a speed difference to pass him. So I went 4 laps longer, I think 4 or 5, something like that. And yeah, because of that, I was able to pass. But unless you really have an insane speed difference, you're never going to pass someone here. Very similar to Silverstone.
Well, very similar to Silverstone in a lot of respects, but for you, let's talk about that pass on Peter Berryman, because you had to set it up, you had to work on it, you had to try and find an opportunity to make a pass as and when it came up. So you saw the one chance. Is this one of the tracks where you go, okay, sometimes being maybe that more aggressive character, maybe back in the Radicals Online days, maybe that's a little bit more helpful to getting things done here?
No, not at all. I just knew from the first stint that Apex have such a good set here when it comes to their tires, at least. And they were, and for the first few laps in the first stint, it was, I felt everything was pretty equal. But as the stint progressed, I knew they kept getting faster, and you could see that because Kevin was pulling away from me at the end, and obviously he was pulling himself towards Mitchell. So I knew that as soon as I got to Peter, I just had to overtake him because I couldn't risk driving behind him for 5 more laps and then maybe having my tires fall off a small cliff again and then being on the same pace as him. Because I knew, again, if I have the same pace as him, then there's no way past.
Well, no way past, but you have more opportunities later on in the season. You've got Suzuka, which will be coming up pretty soon. So you're looking at maybe now consolidating the end of the season, a couple of wins so far. Would you say that this is a definite improvement on where you were 1 year ago? And do you feel like there's even more of a higher ceiling, knowing how strong not only your teammates are, but the likes of Gregor Hutu is?
Yeah, I'm just really looking forward to the next 3 races. They're one of my favorite tracks, and these are obviously tracks we did really well at last year, so I hope that's going to be the same case this year. And yeah, obviously Nurburgring wasn't our strongest track last year either, so that kind of showed here, I think. But yeah, I really I really want to win again, and I really want to win again this season. So I'm really going to do my best to get at least one win in either one of these 3 races. And yeah, if it's all 3 by any luck, then I'll take it as well. But I'll just focus on getting one for now.
You heard it here first then, ladies and gentlemen. Mac Backen, who comes home in 4th position for this event, he wants another victory.
He does, and we've got 3 rounds for him to get another one. Rounding out your top 5 here today is Apex Racing UK's Peter Berryman. He is the first driver who's not a Team Redline or a Commander Sim Sports driver. He joins us now. Peter Berryman, 5th place here today in that number 69 car, 25 seconds behind the overall race leader. However, that's still not a bad result.
Yeah, not too bad, all things considered. But, I mean, it's a pretty lucky P5. I'm not going to deny that. Obviously, Kev had a bit of an issue, so I'm count myself lucky I'm even here at all. But, yeah, a pretty boring race from my perspective. Nothing else really to say, just slow. That's about it. I think, oh, sorry.
I was going to say, Nurburgring's a really tough track to overtake at. How hard was it for you to even stay close to drivers, overtake drivers, do anything in this race?
Yeah, like Max said, unless you've got a huge advantage, there's not much you can really do. The first stint, we were all stuck in a train, and that's it, really. It's extremely difficult to make a run on anybody, so it's strategy and qualifying is pretty much the make or break of this circuit.
There's 3 rounds of the championship to go. You are officially out of championship running now. However, you are still in the top 5 in the championship. What's the need process for you heading into the last 3 rounds of the championship, and how does the point situation affect your ability to go for positions, defend positions, etc.?
I don't really think I was in the championship running at all beforehand anyway, so
technically now you're officially out of it.
Yes, so not too disappointing that way, but yeah, I've nothing to lose, nothing to gain. I guess 4th place with Mac is maybe on the cards if things go well, but yeah, I'm not too fussed really. I know that the top guys are obviously fighting for positions pretty hard, so if I come up against those guys, I think I'm just going to send it, because obviously they're going to get out of the way. I don't think they're going to fight too hard, so I guess for those guys it's definitely on their mind, but yeah, I'm just going to go for it.
Thank you very much there. Before we let you go, Peter, anyone who want to give a shout out to?
Yep, all the guys in the team, of course, as usual. A lot of work went in, and I think with 2 top 5s, in my head today would have been strong. So all the sponsors, JCL Sim Racing, Leo Bodner, Simputers, PC Systems, and SDK Gaming, and yourselves for the broadcast. Thanks very much.
Well, thank you very much there to Peter Berman. Let's do final thoughts then, Jake. I'm going to start with you.
Well, I think it was a very difficult race for drivers to make things happen. I think that Nurburgring is always very, very difficult. But I think that what we see from this event is that this race was one which will be defined by one fantastic overtake, will be defined by a very strong drive, and will be defined by consistency moving into the end of the season. It's not the pivotal race, but it is the race that pretty much sets a trend that builds up for the last 3 rounds of the season.
Jonathan.
Final thoughts on the event?
Yeah.
So this is a good event. Who knows if Hutu can carry on this momentum, but as Martin summed up perfectly, this is actually a bit of a bogey track for Coanda SimSport. Either that, or it's a bonus track for Team Redline, because Hutu goes pretty well around here too. Good to see him back on victory lane. I'm happy with that. But we all know Martin is certainly the favourite to win the championship if he wasn't already.
Is it game over, Johnny, for Mitchell de Jong?
I wouldn't say it's game over. I know what you're saying there. If everything goes to plan, it probably is. But if Martin has a Monza moment and crashes, and even though Martin really should have won that race, but that was an error. You know, the Montreal was the technical issue, but Monza was his crash. So
Phillip Island too.
Yeah, Phillip Island too as well. So who knows if Martin gets something wrong in this season. You've got difficult tracks coming up, Suzuka, and that's next coming up in just 7 days' time as well. Spa, Martin's a god at Spa, so let's not expect an error there. But Circuit of the Americas, Mitchell de Jong goes pretty well there. Great race to cap off the championship.
Yeah, Jake, we go back to back to back now. We've got ourselves Suzuka in a week's time. We've got Spa in 2 weeks' time. 2 very complicated tracks, and arguably 2 of the hardest tracks ever to be a part of the Formula 1 World Championship Series. So, is this a case now of a case of surviving rather than necessarily going for victories, either of those Coanda drivers?
Well, let's just go back a couple of years to when Gregor Hutu was fighting the first championship with Martin Kroenke. The moment he went into turn 1, La Source at Spa-Francorchamps, bang, he's around. Championship changes on a dime. You look at Suzuka, you have a moment, say, at Kobayashi's hairpin. You say you have a moment down at the Casio Triangle. Bang, championship changes on a dime. It's too early to say this championship is over. Martin Kroenke could crash out of another race. Mitchell de Jong could crash out of a race, could have a few bad results. Gregor Hutu could win the lot and there would be poor results for both of them. This is still an open championship. It's not over. If things, for example, were basic and nothing happens in these races, it's Kroenke's. But things will happen in these races because it's racing, Will.
It is. But, Johnny, we've got to remember that Kroenke is the best driver in finishing off a season over the last 4 years we talked about earlier. But also, you've got the Matt Backham factor. Of course, the controversy with him and Hugo Louise many moons ago. You got the fact that Mitchell de Jong hasn't traditionally been good at these last 3 races compared to Kroenke. De Jong's got a lot of work to do, and now it's going to be a case of how much energy we'll put into this compared to his other world championship and other racing pursuits.
Yeah, exactly. He's got to manage Rallycross too, so there's a bit of pressure on him in that championship, like we mentioned. But I'll tell you what, though, if I had to make a bold tip before we leave, Kroenke compared to de Jong, I feel like de Jong could have the upper hand going into not just Suzuka, but Circuit of the Americas. I think Spa, Kroenke is historically always been the best driver at that track in this series. But man, Mitchell de Jong, you know, he's... I can't remember if it was 2015 when Mitchell de Jong ended up winning at Suzuka. It may have been... I'm looking at the... yeah, it was 2015 where de Jong ended up passing Kroenke on track and winning that race. Finished second the past 2 years. Mitchell de Jong, that's a strong track for him, I'm telling you right now. And Circuit of the Americas, also another strong track for Mitchell de Jong. Had another race win there as well in the past. Didn't race there 1 year. Finished on the podium last year. This guy is he's got a legitimate chase for the championship. He just has to hope for a few Martin Kroenke errors here on in.
That is all we've got time for here today then in the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series. Thank you to Iswan Balau and TrackCams22.com, to And1 Design for our graphics overlay, and also to Abgeneer.com for all of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes to make our graphics work. Also, thank you to Thyssen for RaceSport TV, live timing and scoring, Jonathan Simon and Jake Sperry over there. I am Will Vincent. That has been round number 11 of the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series. Well, it didn't give us many answers. However, it did raise the fact that De Jong and Kroenke will go down to the last 3 rounds. We're now officially down to 4 drivers who are statistically eligible for the World Championship, but Martin Kroenke inches closer, and Mitchell De Jong has a lot of work to do. Join us next week at Suzuka Circuit for the 12th round of the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series. As ever, we'll be online from 1:30 p.m. GMT here live on the iRacing eSports Network. In the meanwhile, from all of us here at RaceSport TV, thank you for being a part of our coverage, and we'll talk to you all next time. Goodbye from the Nurburgring.